Alright guys, welcome to Coach's Corner, the best part of the stream. This is the first one of 2017. Much delayed, and thanks for joining us for this one. We'll be going through really a methodology of preparing for bosses and really learning anything in life. Something called the Feynman technique, or the Feynman technique, sorry. Some of you may be familiar with that. And then we'll be going through every single boss in Nighthold on normal and heroic to prepare you guys, the majority of raiders, so you're more or less set and ready to go for bosses coming this Tuesday or Wednesday for you fun EU people. We will be beta testing it and finalizing any bugs and tuning issues there are, I'm sure, this coming Tuesday for you guys. So I know in chat here we have a lot of people. If you guys have questions, feel free to ask them. I'll have the question period after every boss or anytime I can. Midges has notes pulled up for me. So we're going through every single boss with videos and explanations and things like that. We're not going to be covering mythic mechanics because mythic raiders should have already prepped at this point. And the majority of our viewer base is not the higher end mythic raiders, and truthfully, you know, as even the average mythic raiding guild, a lot of the strats and videos come by from the top 10 guilds once they have their own strats finalized and it's all revealed to everybody else and that kind of stuff. So we're not going to spend too much time on that. But for those of you that do have notebooks out or whatever for class, that's great. I mean, you do want to have some kind of notes because raiding is serious business. Whatever, it's a hobby you enjoy, love it. Now, what I do want to start with is how to start researching these encounters, right? So one of the interview questions I often ask, I've been asking my recent apps is, hey, what kind of research have you done for Nighthold? And obviously, one of the most common answers is, oh, I haven't really done anything. I'll watch a couple of videos beforehand. Okay, well, that's probably not the kind of prep that I would want from the average Mythic Raider. Other ones have done extensive PTR testing. They've watched all the videos. They know them inside and out. On Heroic, whatever, they may not have first-hand experience sometimes, but at least they've done their research and they understand the fight. It is really important to understand why certain things happen, where to stand for them, what to prioritize, that kind of stuff. And now, with the Feynman technique, you can really learn anything. So let's say you want to learn a boss. Let's say it is, Skorpyron. Skorpyron, the first boss of Nighthold. Well, okay, so step one is choosing the topic. So you focus on Skorpyron as the topic of what you want to learn. And second step is you want to write an explanation of the concept, or explain the boss, right? Use plain English. So when I use a lot of these explanations today, it's all plain English. It's not the circles or the swirls on the ground. It's balls, right? There's gonna be so many balls tonight that you guys will either hate or love balls. And now what you want to do is you want to write things down. So I've got my 10 pages of notes for you guys today, but it's all written down as if I was teaching a brand new person, right? Like as a brand new student, right? It's some things aren't really included that aren't super relevant. Like you can't, like on Skorpyron for instance, you can't attack the outside adds or they take reduced damage until they're actually in combat, so there's no point attacking the small little scorpions. That stuff's not super relevant for most players, so it's really the most important stuff. So write it down as if you were to teach it to your raider. So those of you in the various Zeros to Heroes raid teams out there, or the DJ teams or whatever, as if you were the raid leader, how would you teach this fight to everybody else, right? Step 3 is review it. So you've gone through everything, you've looked at the videos, you've watched it, you've gone through your strat. Okay, well, what are you unfamiliar with? So go back to the material, the dungeon journal, the logs, the videos, the fat boss guides, the Sparty guide here or whatever, and relearn it, right? It's important to relearn those things rather than to just sort of, okay, I'm going to learn it on the fly. I'm a great raider. That's fantastic, right? That's awesome that you're an awesome raider. However, how many wipes is it going to take you to learn? How many wipes could have been prevented, right, of your 25-person heroic team or your mythic team had you done the prep beforehand, right? And then the last step is when we explain these encounters, we don't want to use really wordy language. It's Axions on Helia. Listen, don't care. Purple orbs, green orbs, what do they do? What's important? Right? Like for the majority of players. On Gul'dan, there's purple circles, right? What do we want to call them? It doesn't matter. The green balls, it's a big ring of fire, whatever it is. So, So when you're teaching these to your raiders, again, simple language, and use analogies. You're going to see me use tons and tons of analogies. Hey, like this boss, like Lei Shen, like Manaroth, like this boss in this dungeon, because you guys have seen so many of these abilities already. So, with that, we're going to get started with Skorpyon. So Skorpyon's the first boss in the instance. It is a pretty fun one. You know, at this point, I wish I had my third monitor set up because I could totally use this. So this is a great AoE fight. I'm going to pull this up for you guys. I've got my notepad or my video here. Let's pull up. We're going to watch Sparty's VODs. Midges was nice enough to highlight these for me. Perfect. This is the right time. All right. So we're going to pull up these VODs, and I'll be going through the different abilities, that kind of stuff. The VOD will be muted for you guys, so you won't see sort of, you know, what's happening. But yeah, this is Skorpyon. This is on Heroic, I believe. We did a 15-person raid test. We actually overhealed it. Can you guys see this? Yeah, we actually overhealed it. Because we didn't need that many healers for this size raid group. But there's a number of different abilities that you guys should be aware of. And one of the best positions for this boss is a fairly centralized position. The closer you have him to the middle, the better it is. Now, we put up 4 different markers to make it easier on the tanks for the Arcane Tether ability, as well as where people should be standing. I'll show the pictures to you guys later, but I'll go through some of the abilities here step by step. So this is a great AoE fight, as well as a great single target fight for those that assign it. Treat this boss as a dragon. What do dragons do? Well, they breathe. Don't stand in front of the dragon or Skorpion ever. He has a big frontal ability that will absolutely murder you. Do not stand with the tanks. But he doesn't have a tail. Don't worry about his tail there. He won't tail swipe you. So the majority of the raid, again, he should be centralized. He's a little bit off position here. But yeah, we have our tank there, a little bit by skull. And periodically, the spiders, you see the Skorpions come out. Now the first ability that comes out is the Focused Blast. This ability is super easy to dodge. Focus Blast, it targets a player. That's typically a ranged or healer in the raid. If you're all stacked in together, well, guess what? It's going to target all of you guys because that's the spot, so you're all going to have to move. So what we did is we tried to centralize the boss and spread around in a circle, and I can't draw for you guys, but spread around in a circle or different points, so only one group would have to move or a second group. And basically, it's a frontal stun. If you get hit by it, there's the ability there that just went off. It stuns anybody in place. So there, nobody got hit. That big pincer thing is the frontal ability of the boss as well. And the blue little crystals are parts of his shell that are coming off. Those parts of the shell are super, super important. Because you'll need to use them to hide behind later on. Again, there's plenty of weak cores that we'll share with you guys too. So here on normal and heroic, you get these little crystalline scorpions. Well, what do? They get stronger over time. Just AoE them down. Bring them by the tail, murder them, have fun AoE, demon hunters, whatever class likes to AoE. The other thing is these volatile ones. So you see it's marked with a skull right now. The volatile ones will do additional damage to those that are nearby. So prioritize those things right away. If you can switch off to them, do so. Blow them up and cleave off of the volatiles. There we go. So little crystals are spawning. And you can see our timers there going off right now. So there's that big slash, that frontal Arcano slash is what the tanks have. Now, what the tanks are going to do is they're going to be dancing between 2 markers ideally. So in order to break their tether, they need to go from skull to X and back and forth. So we just alternate tanks back and forth between those steps ideally. Yeah, as Zorania says, and they spawn every 20 seconds in PTR. We'll see what the testing is exactly. So Focus Blast, this one again, this is the ability that will stun you. Don't stand by it. Super easy to dodge. Just move, right? Like, don't just, RP walk, but move. There we go, and looks like somebody was stunned by that one. Yeah, somebody was stunned by that one. So again, more ads spawn. And now once you see the shockwave soon, in the middle of the screen, once that goes to 100, the ability will be off cooldown, and he will now use the Shockwave ability. The Shockwave is super important, really the most important one here, and the most dangerous ability, because it will knock you backwards. So if you're not hiding behind a crystal, it will knock you backwards. This includes tanks. So as a tank, it's important to position yourself in such a way that you can get to those crystals in time. So don't be off in Zimbabwe, but be close enough to the crystals, obviously not facing the raid because of the big slash, that you can hide behind the crystals. All the meanwhile, we're AoEing those ads. Here it says move to crystalline thing, and then there's a shockwave. And you can see one of the tanks, I think that's Towley or somebody, got knocked back to the wall. Luckily, there were no scorpions there, but somebody else got knocked back, and then you will pull more scorpions, taking additional damage. You want to avoid this, right? You want to have as few enemies to kill, and you just want to burn the boss as much as possible. Periodically, they do spawn, like Zerania said, every 20 seconds or so, through the Call of the Scorpion there. You can see on the right side, there is the exoskeleton vulnerability, so he takes a little bit more damage. He takes less damage and then more damage as the shells break off. So at this point, we're going to hero because he's going to get that vulnerability. And more crystals are spawning. Now, those crystals spawn near players. Their first iteration of beta, it was really, really crazy because the tanks could never get to them. So it does spawn near players. Wherever you are, expect crystals to spawn near you. There's the Focus Blast again. Super easy to dodge. Nobody got hit by that one. More calls of the Scorpion. So he's calling more Scorpions to us. The off tank picks them up. I mean, there's a pretty easy tank swap here. Kill the ads, do a couple stacks, and then tank swap. It's a fairly straightforward encounter. Here comes Shockwave soon. So here comes a Shockwave, DBM. DBM's awesome. Says move to crystalline fragments. So we're going to hide behind them. And now, I don't have the weak aura running right now, but there's a weak aura that shows if you are safe. There's a big, safe weak aura that I will share with you guys in a second here, thanks to Relo. There's the frontal ability. You can see it. Again, it's one big, wide path line down the middle. And there's the big frontal attack. So again, don't be in front. If you use more of a central position, even close to the middle than this, that makes it a lot easier for everybody to dodge. Just back and forth there. And you see our tank, he ran from purple to red to drop his debuff because of the actual tether ability. There are lots of big explosions. Here comes the, so this is Focus Blast. So this is where it can get trickier. Sometimes they're going to line up pretty close to each other. It's Focus Blast, which is the frontal, and then Shockwave, which is the knockback. So here we're going to AoE. It's okay, we're going to Shockwave, so hide behind the crystalline fragments. So you do have to get right next to them. You can't just hide 5 yards behind one. You do need to get right close to one, so you have the weak aura applied to you. Yeah, Lexarani says he's vulnerable at 75, 50, and 25%. Now there's one more. So there's the Focused Blast. Or Energies, rather. There's the Arcano Slash. So at this point, the tank has him too close to the wall, right? If you have him too close to the wall, well, then more Scorpions are going to fall or come to the raid. Again, you want him centralized as much as you can. But it is a pretty straightforward encounter. It's a great first introductory encounter. For the raid. I mean, it's great. It's AoE, blow shit up, don't stand in bad, that kind of stuff. Okay, at this point he has the vulnerability again. And then he's going to end up with a Shockwave as well soon. But look what happens with the timings. So Focus Blast here. So crystals are spawning, but even though Shockwave says soon, and he has 100 energy, he does his Focus Blast first. So don't confuse the two. Right? Don't hide behind there. So you see the guys on the left side there got stunned. Looks like one of the mages got stunned as well. So they ice blocked, and that's fine. And they got knocked back. You can see the big ice block getting knocked back, and then spawns more Scorpions. So that's where they got confused, and they should not have. Yeah, little meme Mancer died. They should not have gotten stunned because they spawned more Scorpions, and then all these Scorpions do more damage, and it's not a fun time. And then on Mythic, there's more and more Scorpions. So on normal, the volatile Scorpions are not around. There's the Focus Blast again, easy to dodge. And on normal, the volatile Scorpions are not there, just the regular blue ones, AoE them, super easy. And then on Heroic are the volatiles, which will do the additional damage. Yeah, on Alpha, I mean, there were plenty of issues, which is why we test these bosses, right? So Kitsuki says, she got knocked between the crystals and you got stuck in the wall. Hopefully that's been fixed and remedied at this point. But yeah, it's a pretty straightforward boss. When he's doing his Focus Blast, don't stand there. When he's doing his Shockwave, hide behind a crystal, otherwise AoE ads, and don't stand in front. It is a pretty straightforward encounter, not crazy difficult. We didn't 3-tank it. I mean, some guilds may be 3-tanking later on, on Mythic because of the Green Scorpion, but we'll see. We'll see what kind of damage requirement it is. And just do remember that Mythic Nighthold is not tuned for 54 traits. If you have 54 traits, hey, fantastic, you will have an easier time. The only encounter tuned for 54 traits is Mythic Gul'dan. So you heroic raiders out there, don't feel pressure to get more and more traits. Even the the lower end Mythic raiders, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal whatsoever. So that is Skorpyron in a nutshell. Pretty fun encounter. I enjoyed it. I like simple encounters. I really, really like them. Any other notes I had here? Yeah, I mean, that was essentially it. Oh, there we go. Volatile Scorpions are heroic and higher. They're priority because they give haste to nearby Scorpions. The crystalline ones are super easy. Let's go back to the fight for a second here. And yeah, that's it. Oops. That's totally the wrong fight. Okay. Cool. Any other questions about Scorpion itself? Got my first Mythic kill on boss who has a tank. Gobble Gobble. That's fantastic. Good. And so many success stories. That's fantastic, Loris. Okay. If there's any questions about Scorpion, otherwise we will move on. So, again, if you need any clarification at any point, hey, Sparty, what does this do? How do I avoid certain things? What about this kind of idea? Is it immutable? Is it stunnable? Just ask. Feel free to ask in chat here if you're ever unsure. Because it's better to ask questions now than wipe the raid later because you didn't ask or, you were afraid to ask, right? So, the weak auras, fantastic, great question, Deadly Cool. So, weak auras are there, both commands work. This is fantastic. Fibrilo is one of our old guildies. He's now retired. He plays on EU, doing whatever. These are all the weak auras for really everything. So, Scorpion's weak auras, I'm going to click. Redirects me to a paste bin. I'm going to copy import string like this. It's copied, right? So, these are the strings. These are the actual, this is the code and what it does, so it's not going to steal your gold, kick you out of the guild. You're going to go to weak auras, you're going to go to import, and you're going to paste it in here. Then you'll click import, and fantastic. So those are the weak auras for the entire boss. The first one on the left side says dodge. Okay, that's for the focused blast, right? You want to dodge. The hide is when a shockwave is coming, so hide. Great. The safe is when it is safe for you and you will not be knocked back. The ones, those are more for the tanks, the tank debuffs in the middle there, and the right side ones are the mythic abilities. And there is a shockwave soon timer as well. Yeah, I mean, everything you need right in the middle of your screen, thanks to Fibrilo. Good guys made them all. So, fantastic. Thanks for subs as well, but I've turned off subs for now. Alright, yeah, Fibrilo is amazing. He's done all these weak auras. We test them for him when he needs us to, so we're more than happy to do it. But yeah, that's Scorpion in a nutshell. Can I explain the ad part again? Yeah, so with Scorpion, let me pull up the fight again here for you really quick. Scorpion VOD. Let me just pull it up super quick. Alright, let's go a couple of minutes in. Alright, so this is the fight in a nutshell again. So these ads. Now on normal, you get the little crystalline ads, right? The little crystalline shits around the room. That's on every single difficulty. On heroic, you get a new ad called Volatile Scorpions, and they will haste. Right, you see the one on the far right side, the big red ones? The red ones add haste to the little crystalline scorpions. So they're buffing things. Kill them quick, right? Because they're buffing their friends. And then on Mythic, there's a green one that will spawn a puddle of green crap on the ground whenever they die. So that's part of the reason why some guilds may use 3 tanks. We'll see what happens. We'll see how the tuning is for later on. Could you explain how to handle the ads as DPS? Yes, blow them up. So depending on which spec you are, so if you're a spec that really suffers from target switching, then maybe you should just stick on the boss or go from boss to volatiles and that's it. Again, everything's about allocating DPS, so some players, right, playing Assassination Rogues, you just stay on the boss full time, right? Feral, you stay on the boss full time. Other classes, Windwalkers, Demon Hunters, you want to AoE, right? Rets, you want to AoE? Yeah, go for it. Just blow them up. They're a priority, so focus either on the Scorpion, the big Scorpion, or the volatiles, and cleave off of those. The little crystalline ones, they die super quick. They're not a huge threat. Just murder them. Murder them as much as you can. Yeah, Outlaw Rogue, have fun with that stuff too. And anyway, whichever spec you are. Yeah. So. There you go. And Zorania has tips for you guys for Demon Hunters. Alright, so that is Skorpyron in a nutshell. Blow them up, stack them right behind Skorpyron. So because your group is so close together, right, you're all close for heals, stack them all up, AoE them down, and you're going to have a good time. Do they live a long enough time to dot as a Shadow Priest? I don't think so. I mean, you saw how quickly they died there. I don't know how much benefit you're going to get from dotting those. The mythic ones, yeah. The volatile ones, probably. But the little crystalline ones, I think they're going to die too quick, especially with how well geared most players are going into the encounters. They're just going to get murdered. I don't think it'll be worth the cooldowns, but again, I could be wrong there. Okay, so moving on to boss number 2. All right, we're going to move on to, which one did I have set up here next? Okay, well, why don't we start off with weak auras? Where are my little weak auras here? So let's start off with Chromatic Anomaly. So here are Chromatic Anomaly weak auras. We're going to copy them. We're going to import them as well. New import. Thanks, Iberlo. There are, well, it seems it's not complete. Well, whatever. So there's 3 really big ones that you need to be aware of, whether it's a Time Bomb, the Haste, or the DPS phase. And we'll go through them in a sec. So Chromatic Anomaly is a pretty cool fight. It's a fun boss where it's something we've been asking for a long time, where your abilities change, or the speed of your abilities change, your movement changes depending on the time. So it's a really cool bronze dragonflight style ability, but it's this weird chromatic anomaly, right? It's a time anomaly, essentially. Let me pull up the video for Chromatic Anomaly next. All right, there we go. All right, Chromatic Anomaly. All right, here we go. So this is the fight. So we didn't get into the fight with a 15-person heroic raid. It was tuned pretty decently. It was a little buggy later on. I'll explain that later on. But yeah, this is a fun fight where your cast times, so let's say it's during normal time. So regular, anytime you raid, things are normal time. Same thing with this encounter. There's a normal time, a slow time, and a fast time. During slow time, your casts are slower, you attack slower, your dots tick less frequently, and also debuffs on you, they last longer. When it's fast time, you attack really fast, you move really fast, you cast really fast, and you have less time to react for different debuffs. So that's what makes the encounter really, really cool. The first ability, I mean, is a tank ability. We'll start with tank abilities, pretty standard here. Tank ability, you swap, because you don't want to get 9 stacks. If you get 9 stacks, you die, and then you blow up on the raid as well. So we decided to, we pulled around here. The first thing that's going to happen is the Burst of Time ability. And these bursts of time, again, big balls. Don't stand in the big balls. Super easy, right? Like, I'm pretty zoomed in here, but the big red circles in the ground, that's balls in the ground. Don't stand in them. All right, next thing that's going to happen here is a big add. You'll see it on the far left side. And this big add is a priority add. You need to interrupt the warp Nighthold that it does. You can't let it get any casts off, because the subsequent cast will be that much stronger and further blow up the raid. So super easy to interrupt. Focus it down. It is a huge, huge priority, because an ability called Power Overwhelming is coming. So again, there's more orbs or balls to dodge. There'll be lots of balls in this encounter.
Watch your step.
Alright, now what happens is these temporal orbs are going to happen. Now, temporal orbs, they come out of the middle of the room, the Nightwell, right? Because we're all sort of fighting in the Nightwell. These orbs come out, and you have to dodge them. There's 2 waves to dodge. And, yeah, this boss is super fun. Just next. Oops, sorry. You'll see exactly what happens. So here they come out. You see the blue circles coming out from the Nightwell. The first wave comes out. The best place to dodge them is roughly where I dodge them here, around the middle sort of section of the room. If you dodge, the closer you are, the easier it is. The further back you are, the harder it is to dodge these. So there's the first set, and there's the second set. You see how I got in between both? I think I got clipped by one there. But look, see how they line up? If you tried to dodge them now on the outside, you'd find it super difficult. Like, there's no way to be able to dodge them, and you take that damage anyway. So that's the other big dodging ability. On my raid frames, you're going to see yellow and red squares. That's a debuff called Time Release. That's really important for you healers. If you're a DPS, whatever, you don't really need to worry about it. That is a healer debuff. What it does, it's an absorption shield, right? So sort of like overflowing, except it's overflowing that blows up on the raid. So what you have to do is you have to heal off these debuffs. You have, you know, X amount of seconds, and if they are not healed off, they explode on the raid for the absorb remaining. Right? Can you leap over them or blink? I didn't try. Maybe Panzer or somebody else. I imagine you could blink over them. I don't see why you couldn't. Leap, I'm not sure. Good question, though, Freezing. So here I'm healing off Firemancer, now Jungleina. The buff turns different colors. And now the big ad, once he dies, he spawns these 4 little ads. They continue warping the Nightwell. They're stunnable, interruptible. Blow them up. The really important thing, though, is when the big ad dies, you gain a tank ability that allows you to interrupt. Right? That allows you to interrupt the boss who's casting Power Overwhelming, right? Like the big Archons do. And the Power Overwhelming blows up on the raid and keeps getting stronger and stronger and stronger. So if you're really slow to kill that big ad, well, then you're going to wipe, right? So you see Power Overwhelming on the right side of my screen being cast right now because I have him targeted. And then one of the tanks will interrupt it here shortly. There, now it's been interrupted. And then we go back to the other phases with fragments. Alright, there's another time release happening. And so now at this point, more time releases are coming up on the raid. You can see lots of debuffs there.
Watch your step.
And temporal orbs again. So now time has slowed. Look at the cast time of my flash of light. I'm super slow to move. Right, those are still going up at a fairly decent pace. Flash of Light's taking 2.5 seconds to cast, and the big red balls coming down, they're also really slow to move. I apologize for the quality. It's really crappy right now. So it gives you more time to move, but everything is a lot slower. And then the other big ability on this encounter, you can see the weaker on the left side of my screen there, is Time Bomb. Now, when Time Bomb expires, I mean, it hits everything within about 40 yards. There were times where we could line of sight this. We tried... Just leave it as be 40 plus yards out when Time Bomb expires. Now, if you're doing the slow phase, so when everything's slowed, you got 2 minutes. You have a lot of time to get out. If you're doing the fast phase, you got about 10 seconds to book it out of there, because it's going to explode really quickly and blow up your entire raid. So Time Bomb's on Gano right now.
So you can see we're in slow mode right now. I've got 2 minutes on my Time Bomb.
And I'm explaining, you know, to the viewers at the time with Time Bomb. And now another ad spawns. You can go through the exact same thing again. Alright, soon we'll be going to... And so he's casting Power Overwhelming now, so that's raid-wide AoE damage. While we're trying to kill the waning Time Elemental. Now, I did say it's interruptible, right? But sub 30%, you cannot interrupt it, so you have to execute it down super quick. So we're taking more and more damage from Power Overwhelming the longer that thing is up. There. Tanks can get the shield. Watch what happens with the tank. I think this is Towley that he jumps up and breaks it soon. Maybe it's somebody else. I think this was one of our bad attempts. Yeah, so the Time Bomb exploded there. I know I had a better kill there somewhere. Let me pull it up again here. What was Chromatic Anomaly? Oh, that's Trilliax. Fun times Trilliax. Yeah, we had another really good one where we got later and later into the fight. Yeah, this is the better one. Let me go back here a couple seconds. All right. So here, this is again normal time happening right now. Yeah, boss at 30%. There's another elemental spawning. You see that little ticking timer, right? You got to be careful with that ticking timer as well. Power Overwhelming, going to start casting soon. We want to kill the elemental again. And now we're dealing with fast time, so things are going a lot faster, people moving a lot faster. Right, super, super quick. Things are going much quicker, so it gets interrupted. I think you see Towley jump up and then interrupt him at that point, and again back to normal time. Orbs are happening. So we decided to hero during the slow sections here. Didn't they change the Time Bomb? Like there's no exact range, it's farther away, less damage. Well, there's one attempt where I get the Time Bomb. I'm trying to find this in my video here that I explained to my viewers that I have the Time Bomb and I run away. Here it is. There it is. So here's the Time Bomb. So this one's about to expire, and so it looks like it had a radius. I don't know if it did raid-wide. I'll have to double check if it did raid-wide damage there through the logs. But it looked like it was just X amount of, the certain radius, and that was fine. It could be, just be further out, and then the graphic is only 40 yards, but who knows. Here, again, things going really fast. Get temporal orbs. So this is the fast mode. You'll do a lot more damage during this section, obviously, because your spells are a lot faster as well. Yeah, and heroic you can't interrupt under 30%. I would start getting into the habit of doing the heroic strats rather than just the normal ones. But yeah, on heroic you can't interrupt the waning time elemental sub 30%. So here he's casting Warp Nightmare. We can't interrupt it right there. So you see Tally leap up in the air there, and he's going to jump down, and so he does a big temporal smash, he interrupts the cast, and he comes back down. We finish off the elementals, and it's rinse repeat. So it is a pretty cool encounter, time speeding up and down depending on what's going on, so you just have to react. But it is a pretty solid second or third encounter depending on which way you're going, I think. Yeah, it's pretty solid. The worst part of this was the trash. The trash was absolutely horrendous. The first few times, or the first few iterations that we did this boss in beta, it was so bad. I don't know if anybody really liked the trash. It seemed buggy and overtuned and just super difficult. But I mean, that's pretty much it, right? You just DPS the boss. When he's casting Power Overwhelming, kill the elementals in time. If you don't kill the elemental in time, you'll do more damage or take more damage. And then just deal with Time Release as a healer, Time Bomb as anybody. Make sure you drop it off in the raid somewhere else. Yeah, so in terms of heroism or bloodlust, we decided to use it during the slow phase. So when we were slowed, we were doing less damage, right? We couldn't kill things as fast. So to offset that, we decided to use heroism during the slow phase to give us, more, or to speed up our damage in order to kill the big ad. Because you'll be able to kill a chromatic, the waning time elemental during a normal phase, a slow phase, and a fast phase. The fast phase, obviously, he'll die super quick. The slow phase, he will not die super quick because his HP doesn't change, right? You do much less damage. And here we had the same issue where it was buggy, or the tank did not get the debuff. We could not enter Power Overwhelming. So hopefully that's been changed since then. Did Voodoo update with the healing debuffs, or did you have to add them manually? Legani, I'm pretty sure. Let me double check here. I can't remember. Let's open up Voodoo. I think it automatically updated. It's called Time Release. I was pretty sure. Yeah, I just added it myself here. Let's go find Time Release. Where are you? Time Release. We'll see. I can't recall what it does, but whether I had added it myself or not. But yeah, we'll see. Either way, just put a Time Release, and then you'll see it on your frames anyway. So yeah, and again, like during the fast portion, well. The amount of time for the time release to tick off is a lot shorter, so you have to be super, super quick with your heals. Whereas when the slow time is going on, you have a ton of time to heal everybody up and get rid of the Absorb Shield. Does using Hero on a longer phase give longer hero? I don't think so. But yeah, that's a really good question. I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so. That's a really clever thing to do, Original Ryan. What would you say is stronger beacon all around going to Nighthold, Faith, or Lightbringer? It depends. They've changed it. Thanks for subbing, but sub later, guys. Sub later, because I've got sub notifications turned off. Thanks, Nacho Cheese. There's encounters where I'll change between all three, honestly. Like, I'll even use Beacon of Virtue, potentially on Tichondrius, because mana is a non-issue. But again, we'll see. I think you'll be switching back and forth, like you do in Emerald Nightmare. Anyway, any other questions with Chromatic Anomaly? Otherwise, I think that's it. Let me see what other notes I had here. Yeah, Temporal Lobes can be dodged. Phase 2 starts with Big Elemental. It's Phase 2, right? But it's the other section of the fight. It's really a one-phase encounter, but Elementals spawn. Make sure you kill them. Just rinse and repeat through normal and slow phases. And yeah, that was it. That was it for the encounter in a nutshell. Right? It is a pretty fun encounter. Let me go back up a little. Minutes here. Yeah, again, dodging these things is super important. You want to minimize how much damage you're taking. So try to dodge them roughly in this section. The further you are out, the harder they are to dodge. The closer you are in, the easier they are to dodge. Obviously, don't be standing right next to the Nightwell, because you'll get hit by them super quick. It was a pretty fun encounter, though. And just make sure your interrupts are on point. Like the Nightwell cast, Warp with Nightwell, is super long, super easy to interrupt. And same with those things as well. The fragments, they're interruptible, stunnable, whatever you need to do. And you see our tank jump up there, Towley smashes it and interrupts Power Overwhelming, which is pretty much the entire fight. It's a fun one. And so below, our little weak aura maker. Fantastic. What are the questions? Would you recommend saving healing cooldowns for when time slows and debuffs are out? Yes and no. Now do remember that when times, so this is really important too. So your cooldowns are also increased or decreased. So Holy Shock typically has an 8-second cooldown, while during fast phase you have much quicker cooldowns. Right? Like my cooldown there was about 5 seconds during fast phase right now. During the slow phase, well, you'll have like a 12-second cooldown in Holy Shock. So yeah, instants are also really beneficial. Light of the Martyr, Holy Shocks, those are, some of your strongest heals. As a paladin, that's what you should be doing to heal off the time releases. When do you want to get rid of them? Slow, honestly, I thought it was a lot easier. When it's quick, right, and you have a raid full of people that have time release, that's when you should be using your cooldowns, right? That's when you may want to pop your Aura of Mercy or Aura of Sacrifice and top everybody off. It makes it a lot easier. And what else? Any other questions here? Does phase affect movement speed as well as haste? Yes, I believe it did. Let me just double check here. I'll just go through it themselves. So what is it? Passage of time. Not burst. Time release. Yeah, casting, movement, and attack speeds. Periodic effects and cooldowns will also be affected. So yes, it is movement speed as well. So you'll run slower or faster. And you saw that when I was running around here at super slow-mo. Right? See how much faster? Like it's like a fast motion game, right? Everything's being fast-forwarded. Like everybody's running around really fast. And then back to normal here. So you can see the speed up of the game. Again, crappy quality of these Twitch VODs, but that's Twitch for you. That's okay. Who's that sexy mage trying to charge? It's Meme Mancer? I don't know. On Skorpyron, he was dead the entire time. We use raid cooldowns on fast orbs. That's what we did as well, Jesters. So we would use cooldowns on the fast section in general. Any other questions about Chromatic Anomaly? Let me know, because now's the time. Who said okay, so we'll move on to Trilliax next. Trilliax is where things get really complicated, but it's also a really, really fun boss. Again, most of these encounters are super fun, right? Emerald Nightmare was pretty standard. TOV, I think TOV is going to go down there with TOC as one of the most hated zones of all time because of Helia and Odin, and I mean, Gorm was okay. But yeah, Nighthold is just... It's a breath of fresh air. It's beautiful. When we get to some of the later encounters like Star Augur, absolutely beautiful encounters. So this is the fun Cake Cthulhu boss. Thank you, thanks a lot for the good wishes. So this is the fun boss here. Let me scroll up to Trilliax. One of my Trilliax. I don't know if we got a kill here. This was the most recent testing. What do my notes say here? Yeah, not a kill on Trilliax. That's okay. Alright, let's pull it up here. So, Trilliax, he is a fun boss. Basically, he's this, I don't know, he's basically the Jeeves of the Nighthold, but he's gone crazy from lack of maintenance. And he's still pretty OCD in terms of cleaning and in terms of blowing shit up. So he has little scrubbers that spawn, he spawns little toxic slices of cake on the ground, and it is a pretty cool encounter. So we'll go through it in a second here. The biggest thing here, or the first thing you guys should notice, is there's puddles on the ground. Now, you guys, as players, control where the puddles spawn. This is really important. Wherever you're standing, a puddle will spawn. Do not spawn puddles in the middle of the room, because you're going to need that real estate later on. Okay, so puddles are the first thing. Don't spawn them on the inside, which is to the left of the screen here. Spawn them on the outside, where everybody's standing now, because it makes it a lot easier. So the puddles will spawn, don't stand in them, it's arcane damage. Tanks have a pretty standard Guarm style attack, so it does split damage, so tanks need to be standing on top of each other, and it then switch after every 2 stacks or so. I think it was around there. And for those of you OCD clean freaks out there, this is your kind of fight. Now, what's going to happen initially is toxic slices will spawn around the room. They need to be picked up by your player. So we hear it at the start here, which is fine. You'll see toxic slices spawn, little purple swirls. So those are the puddles there. You guys see the purple swirls there, and the boss will be dragged back slowly. Now, these little arcane runes, those are where toxic slices get picked up. It's important for your raiders to pick these up. That is a priority mechanic, because you don't want to have these later on. He will blow them up and murder the raid, basically. It's a raid wiping mechanic. Yeah, he's like curator. It's a raid wiping mechanic that will kill you. So watch what happens. You see their Ganar doing a good job soaking there. That's what it looks like. It's a toxic looking cake slice, and they go away once you run over them. And once you eat them, you get full. You can't, well, on heroic, you get full and you can't eat another one for a minute. So you need to alternate with your raid how often you're getting them, right? You send them, one group, two group, whatever. We decided to assign different groups, different sections during this attempt, where there's a blue marker. Go get your feast by blue. If you're in group 2, you're getting blue feast, for instance. And that made it a little bit easier in terms of, okay, well, everybody's not rushing over to one side, and then the other side has, 10 toxic cakes. The other abilities he does here, there's the Arcane Slash, which is a nice frontal ability. We just murdered Towley because Sparty was really far. There's more toxic slices. So again, purple swirls, go soak them. You see, I don't have one right now, but I should be getting one very soon. So now he goes into his Maniac phase. During his Maniac phase, he'll shoot little purple beams. They don't do a lot of damage. They're not a big deal. They're honestly not a big deal. Now, what's going to happen is Arcane Bonds as well. If you have Arcane Bonds, you are linked to somebody. So think of this ability like Xavius. The bonds during Xavius that you're supposed to run towards. The bonds you're supposed to run towards, or think of these as Renferal bonds. You need to link them together so you don't take that damage. What else? And he does his annihilation, so we'll go through that in a second here. So you see me run over to get some cake, because I need to get cake before this next phase starts. And you've got a weak aura thing, below that says, hey, Sparty, you're full, you can't eat. So the little purple beams, it's fairly light damage, it's not that heavy, but it is fairly raid-wide. Now this is the Cthulhu-style beam. This is a fun beam. With these kinds of beams, you will die. Do not stand in front of the boss or behind the boss. It is a big purple friggin' beam. You will die. Watch what happens. There is a beam, and it goes around. So the entire raid should be shifting together while you have bonds, while you're taking that damage. This is a good time for SLTs and your cooldowns, and whatever else you need to do. But guess what? He'll juke you. He will totally juke you. Oh, look, he goes the other way. And people are going to start dying. No, never mind. Not on this one. So he'll turn the other way. At that point, and this is the most important part of the encounter, you'll have feasts. You see a feast spawn in the middle of the screen there, as well as scrubbers spawn. So this is the toughest part of the encounter. Now people have done Cthulhu, better compare the Beam Boss. Yeah, okay, sort of like Beam Boss and Black or Cold, that's true. Black or Cold Beam Boss, but much deadlier. Basically, it's a one-shot mechanic if you get killed by it, right? Or the Shaw of Pride, sure, the Bone Array from Shaw of Pride. Okay, so these feasts are super important. You see Branhista, the dinosaur, she's running over one right now. 3 feasts will spawn. Once you stand on one, you are now the absorbed player. So you will get a 3 million damage absorb shield on you, so you can jump on Scrubbers. Scrubbers, right, because this guy's a cleaner, right? He's the Jeeves or the Curator. He's going to start spawning Scrubbers to start cleaning these little puddles that you guys have created, right? You've created a mess. He's got a really funny voice, too, when you guys get to this boss. And he'll start cleaning these places up. You'll see little Scrubbers spawn, and watch what happens. Yeah, they're the little Scrubbers. They start going towards purple puddles. They want to clean, which is great, because they'll give you more room to maneuver. However, they also go to toxic slices. If you don't have a toxic slice, if there are toxic slices on the ground, they will bolt towards them. So you need to eat those damn slices, eat your friggin' cake. Eat them. Because when they get full energy, they explode. Now, if they're full energy and they're exploding, they're going to do raid-wide damage. So the way to get rid of them, think of them as, for those of you who remember Siege of Orgrimmar, the mines on Juggernaut, same kind of thing. You jump on them, take a lot of damage, and you're safe. The people with the feasts, the 3 people like Branhista, like whoever else, you can see it's on my right here, it's Souls, Roshi, and Branhista, and also Eyelid. they have a 3 million absorb shield on them. They will jump on these scrubbers and not take any damage. You can also use immunities, personal cooldowns, that kind of stuff to do them. Now, in addition, you have people that are getting sterilized, and not like some of you guys that should be sterilized, but it's a sterilized debuff, and what it does is it drains the energy of the scrubbers. So this is where you have to understand the mechanic. The scrubbers are going around cleaning shit. The more stuff they clean, the happier they get, the more energy they get. Well, your job as a sterilizer is to lower their energy so they don't explode. So you see Jungle over here on the top right of my screen right now. He is sterilizing 2 scrubbers with a big blue pulse. Now, that he does take damage from sterilizing them. However, they have less energy, which is good because then they'll not explode. At the same time, more cakes are spawning. You see I just ran over a cake, so the scrubbers don't get it. Like, listen, scrubbers, you can't let them have their cakes. The other big thing is those sterilize, they will also do damage to players. So if you have a sterilize and you're in the middle of your melee clump, you're going to kill everybody. Don't stand there. There's arcane seepage. So you see I was in the wrong spot there. I should not have been standing really there. Because you don't have them off all in the middle of the section. So again, they're spawning on me there, the purple circles. There's more cake. And there's the beams again. He's back to Maniac phase, so he's casting little balls. Scrubbers are pretty much done at this point because he's done his cleaning phase. There's Arcane Seepage. Yep, more stuff. He's spawning more Toxic Slices. So my debuff has expired. I can go get them. And here comes the Annihilation again. Don't stand in front. See people getting run over. Again, this is a good time to be using your AoE heals, your mercies, your SLTs, and he goes back the other way. So don't get tricked by him. Just because he's going one way and you're like, oh, I'm going to stand by the beam, he'll go back and forth. So stand by his middle section. That makes it the easiest thing. Just by his middle section. And this one was a wipe. I think we had a kill later on. Or actually, no, we didn't have a kill in this one. But yeah, then it's tidy up phase again. There's the feasts. People need to jump on them. There's one attempt, or there's plenty of other videos like on Fat Boss where you'll be able to see them. You can see there. You can see the little sterilize. You see Valk on the left side, Eyelid on the right side. Those blue pulses are the sterilize. When you're doing this, it's important to have a healer out there. Right? Just when your players are sterilized, and it's randomly chooses a sterilized person, typically ranged, if you don't have a healer with them, they're going to die. So we assigned a healer to be out with the sterilizers because they need to be healed throughout the entire damn thing. I wonder if I had another attempt here. No, that was Chromatic. Let's go back here. Let's go back a little bit more. Alright, that was another one. Yeah, same thing here. There was a really good attempt. Yeah, so we hear at the pull here. We'll do one more show of this one. It is a pretty insane fight. It is really complicated, but... So, what I often tell my writers, and I'm telling you guys, is when you can isolate different mechanics, like, yeah, at the start, like, guys, the fights get a lot crazier, right? Like, they get so much more crazier than this. If you can isolate mechanics or get rid of ads, you make the fight super, super simple. Okay, so phase 1, what do? Don't stand on the inside, because purple swirls, right? That's it. Eat cake. That is the easiest portion. So always eat your cake if it's your time to go eat cake. You'll make the fight a lot easier if people are eating cake. But unfortunately, cake eating doesn't show up on the meters, right? Sorry, DPS. So there's toxic slices. People are eating them. That's good. Their Towley even eats his cake. We're running around. I'm showing everybody, what's going on at this point. There's the Arcane Slash. So again, tanks want to split that. Meme Mancer's Evocating. More Toxic Slices. So again, I'm going to use my speed. So if you have speed bursts, use them to go get the far Toxic Slices. There's my Toxic Slice. And now he's back in his Maniac phase. So again, wherever you're standing, puddles will spawn like me. So I'm running through the middle of the room. Not the best choice because now the purple shit will be on us later on. So again, he's got the bonds. You guys don't really see the bonds on this one. I couldn't find a perspective where I could show the bonds really well. And again, this is the dodge phase. So again, be by the middle section. That is the safest. It's not super clear where the front that beam ends and starts. So don't be near the front or the back. Just play on the safe side. And again, he goes back and forth. He wants to screw with you with his annihilation ability. Feasts are happening again. So watch what happens. The feasts. Here they go. So those are the 3 circles. They spawn, around the room. People, so this time it was Roshi, Islet, and Ganor. And there come the scrubbers, and there's little sterilizers, right? So gives you a couple seconds, and it starts activating. Jungle on my right side there, he's scrubbing, or he's sterilizing the scrubbers, and the Shadow Priest is running off and doing his own thing there too. It looked like Roshi was playing Boomkin at that point, yeah. There's a cake. Don't let it, see? He went to get that cake. I didn't let him. I ate the cake before the scrubber did. That's what you need to do. Get that cake whenever you can. A little confused with the scrubbers and the cleaning phase. Okay, so one more time. There, that's me jumping on them when they explode. Okay, so the scrubbers come out during the cleaning phase. All the purple shit you left on the ground, they're going to clean. The more purple shit they clean, or the cake they clean, they gain more energy. When they max out their energy, they explode on the raid. So you want to minimize how much energy they're getting and how much cake they're getting. You minimize their energy by the sterilized. People with a blue circle around them, they stand near a scrubber and they will drain their energy like a mana burn almost. And that's pretty much it. They're going to clean up stuff for you, make it nice and clean, and just make sure they don't explode. If you see a big... go back here for a second. There. You see that happening, the big time bomb, I popped DP. Yeah, I popped my Divine Protection there, and I didn't die. So I took 40% reduced damage, and it was fine. So if you see them get full energy, jump on them. It is specifically the job of the people that have Feast or that big Absorb shield to jump on these things, and then they're gone. There. There's another one exploding. See if somebody jumps on it. Oh, I guess I did it. There. So that is important, otherwise they will explode on the entire raid. Was it the first boss? This is the third boss. Are there any other questions about... I mean, that's pretty much it, right? Like, it seems really complicated. There's a lot of shit going on. And a lot of these bosses will be a big learning curve for a lot of guilds because there are a ton of mechanics. Not like, that joke that Vanilla was, and it was like 3 mechanics, right? It was Fear, Flame Breath, and Random Patch of Fire. There's a lot of mechanics in Nighthold, which is awesome, and they interact with each other really, really well. We're watching a program about cooking and cleaning. So what class would be best for taking those? That's a great question. Classes with movement speeds will be great because, mages typically, they can blink over to different things. It depends. It depends on who we're going to assign. I'm not sure who we have assigned right now in the guild in terms of getting these feasts, but yeah, blinks, dashes, whatever, to get to them. Right? Because you're going to have to jump on these, and they take away a million damage, I believe, per explosion, so you'll be able to jump on all 9 of these scrubbers that spawn, right? Because there's 9, yeah. And you see how on the far right there, top side, they're going after the cake. They eat the cake, they're going to get big, and they start exploding. Look at all these damn things. So this is what happens when you don't get cake. I have 4 scrubbers right now exploding on the raid because we failed to do the cake mechanic. So cake is the most important thing. Minimize the amount of cake, and then you'll have a much easier time on the raid in general. Can more than one jump on the scrubbers? I think so. I think the way it worked out is some of us were able to click on the same time, but it wasn't necessary, right? So we took double the damage. It wasn't even needed, right? So the one time I jumped on a scrubber, we took additional damage. So watch what happens. Yeah, somebody jumped on one. I'm going to try to reach this one in time, and it exploded, right? There, you need a little cog wheel to right-click on them, and they explode on the raid, and then you wipe. So again, it's the job of the sterilizers to minimize how much energy they have. You will drain their energy all the way down. Makes it really easy. Do all the scrubbers eventually explode, and the point of sterilizers to stagger the explosions? No, I'm trying to remember here. The sterilizers, I think they just go away. I can't remember when we did this on the later attempt, because we transitioned. We transitioned pretty well here. Let me try to find it. Next phase in 25 seconds. We'll see what happens in 20 seconds here. So this was the better attempt, where we had only Meme Mancer and a Paladin app dead. So next phase in 10 seconds. There's going to be some stuff left over, but I'm pretty sure they just despawn, because you can't kill these guys. Do not attack these scrubbers. It's just a phase shift. So what's happened to the scrubber? Yeah, it looks like you just have to jump on them. Yep. So I think I'd get a good vantage point there, but looks like you just have to jump on them once you get through their energy, and then you'll go into the next phase. Yeah, that's it. They have a passive mana gain, and each puddle they clean up gives them mana. Yeah, so they're going to explode eventually anyway. Again, cakes and the puddles will give them more mana or energy. They're going to explode at some point anyway. So use your immunities or use the people that have the Succulent Feast in order to absorb that damage. Can you have 3 people assigned to cake, or is there a debuff preventing one person from doing it all? So if you have a cake debuff, right, the one that says you're full, you can't eat a feast. So on heroic and higher difficulties, the timing will be very careful. So you can't have just eaten cake and then eat a feast because you'll just be a fat ass, right? So people without the debuff need to go eat the Succulent Feast. So you can assign it, right? So there's multiple rounds of cake during the entire section. Let's say if you're taking cake the first time, then your debuff will expire, right? It'll totally expire by then, and you'll be able to get a feast later on, right? So there's my can't eat debuff, right? And after it expires, I can either go get more cake or save it for a feast. Yeah, and the big thing is, like, this is not a DPS race, this is a big control fight, right? You don't want to be, just DPS and do whatever. Focus on the mechanics, and it'll be a lot easier. If you eat the cakes, right, scrubbers will be less of a problem for you, and then you can DPS more, right? It's all about positioning. It's not, again, not a huge DPS race. Plan to go through multiple phases of this throughout the entire thing. What questions do we have here? If you go through the boss while he has purple beam, will he hit you? I believe it does kill you. I'm pretty sure, yeah, the purple beam goes right through the boss, and not just out his butthole and out of his mouth. So I think you're right there. Yeah, eat a cupcake? Sure, we'll eat a cupcake later. But yeah, it is a pretty fun encounter. He's got a pretty cool voice. Think of like XT and Ulduar, the fun-looking voice, or the fun-sounding voice. It's there too. Yeah, cake or death. So it's a pretty cool boss. Again, focus on mechanics over everything else. What is the difference between cake and a feast? So the feast, right? Feast, there's only 3 of them. There's a big white glow around them. The feasts only spawn during the cleaner phase. So it's regular phase. What is it? Trilliax. Yeah, cleaner, maniac, and caretaker phase. Sorry. The feasts only spawn during the caretaker phase. Cleaner phase, they spawn slices. Toxic slices, they'll give you a little nature debuff. Not a big deal. They're like green and purple and look like gross cake. They spawn throughout the encounter, at least the cleaner phase, and you need to eat them. The feasts, there's only 3 that spawn. There's a big white glow around them. There's actually lots of food on them, and they give you an absorb shield for 3 million, right? And you have this 3 million absorb shield in order to jump on the scrubbers. That's the big difference, Trident. And then our weak auras, did I left the weak auras for this one yet? So again, our weak auras, for those of you that need weak auras, they're all here with the fun little weak command. Let's look at Trilliax. Send me. There we go. Copy import string. And we're going to import. There we go. So these are the different debuffs. For the Arcane Explosion, you have the dot. This dot right here, that is, hey, I'm eating cake right now, I have the debuff. This is, you have a feast on you, right? Big chicken leg. The pulsing damage, the big beam is a beam phase. This is your tether to somebody else, and this is the debuff where you can't eat. Sorry, you're full. Right, if that makes sense for you guys. Yeah, I didn't test it on Mythic, but the other guys did, and Roshi's right there. So the feast number depends on raid size. We'll see how it pans out. There were 4 on Mythic. 3 might be on a 15-person raid. It might be like 5 during a 30-person raid. We'll see. We'll see what kind of tuning we have anyway. So that is Trilliax in a nutshell. But a fun boss. Any other questions about Trilliax? Otherwise, we'll move on. All right, moving on to the next boss. Let me close down these weak auras. All right, and the next boss we will go to is Spellblade Aluriel. Okay, so this boss I tested a couple times with the guild, and it was a, I don't know, pretty fun boss. Pretty interesting. I don't know, pretty standard, pretty cool mechanics. Something does change. Still, are they randomly assigned? Yes, they're randomly assigned. Trident. So the sterilizers, and I think we've only ever had them target range and healers, never a melee. So melees get to just DPS the boss and do whatever they need to do. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's just range and healers. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, though. Anyway, moving on to Spellblade. This is a pretty fun boss. Spellblade is a pretty cool encounter. It goes through, I don't know, what's that encounter? The one in last expansion, the green zone. What was the green zone? With the forest? And the boss that went through fire, arcane, frost phases. It's very similar to that. It's going to go through different phases throughout the entire encounter. The abilities change. And this is a pretty common theme with a lot of these casters. They will have base abilities, and those abilities change later on. So here we're going to start with Spellblade. Alright, so Spellblade's pretty cool. Initially, you will always start in the frost phase. Tanks have a debuff. One sec here. Pull up my notes. Tanks have an ability that need to stand together like Gwarm. It's very similar. It splits damage. The main tank will take more damage for their 1.5 minutes. You can tank swap, whatever. Tanks have an easy job here. Let's be honest. So the first phase is Frost. Frost is pretty cool. You'll see the weak auras pop up here in a second. So there's some balls happening from the mages. Annihilate. Yeah. Okay. So the first marks of Frost happen. Now, depending on your raid size, on a size of this, we had 4 marks go out. And now what the Mark of Frost does, you'll see it happen in a second here. There. Certain people get targeted by a Mark of Frost. And we had 2 groups assigned. We had a green marker and a blue marker. And now we had 8 people total assigned to Marks of Frost. So you see a Mark of Frost on Ganner and Memancer. And look what happens. So they will have a debuff that gets stronger and stronger and stronger until eventually kills them. The only way to get rid of this debuff is they need to take those big blue balls that they have and push them together. So watch what happens when they collapse together, when Ganner's and Memancer's balls touch. Here they go. Almost. There. And so when you touch balls, then the balls jump on somebody else. So now myself and Roshi have the Mark of Frost. Now we found it, I know our strats is something a little bit different on the GG forums. 5 or 6 balls, 5 or 6 stacks before you jump to somebody else. Now, when you touch together, it'll jump to the next closest person. So then we readjusted ourselves to the blue marker here. There. And Mark of Frost. We're at 5 stacks, 6 stacks, 7 stacks. Now there's some confusion here because Memancer's in the wrong spot. You see here, by green marker, his partner's up there, whereas Memancer ran over to us. He shouldn't be here. So again, you want to pair them up, right? So Islet and Memancer have it. There should be touching balls by the green marker there. So we tell him, get away from us, get away from us. Well, Roche eventually blinks out. So I touch balls with Memancer. At 12 stacks, that's a lot. And then the mark jumps again to 2 other people. So it's basically bouncing back and forth between these players. Now, Detonate is also one of the abilities on this boss. I don't know, whatever. Spellblade detonates the Marks of Frost, whoever has them. So watch what happens. So Mark of Frost, again, same thing, we're going to jump it. Now Detonate happens. Wherever you're standing with Mark of Frost, you will spawn a big blue puddle there. So watch, Marks of Frost happening, and big blue puddles. So don't stand in big blue puddles, right? Really easy. That's a pool of frost. Now from these pools of frost, you'll spawn big icy elementals. These elementals need to be picked up by your tanks, brought into melee, and just AoE the crap down. One of these elementals will get stronger, and you'll see what happens here. And then look, we have Marks of Frost again. We're still dealing with this stuff. I guess that one didn't collapse, so we just have to wait for that one to expire. So what one of the elementals does is they charge up. They do this big wintry, again, big blue circle. If you are standing inside this big blue circle like our tanks and our melee, you take damage. The damage isn't super strong. The important thing is you don't cross the threshold. So if you're on the inside of the blue circle, you stay inside the blue circle. If you're on the outside of the blue circle, like all of our ranged and healers, you stay on the outside. If you try to cross, you'll get frozen. You'll see that happen. You see there's an icicle on the right side there. Somebody tried to cross. On the left side there, somebody tried to run out. So you're either stuck inside or you're stuck outside, and there's no in between. So the big one he's casting is Frozen Tempest. That's the big blue ability. He kills it, and then it's going to go away. So again, you're cleaving these down. They're not a huge priority, but the one that is casting should be focused down. Otherwise, you're cleaving them down. There's a Frozen Tempest, and yeah, somebody else got frozen there. Those are the ice shards. So you're breaking people out, similar to Sindragosa. If you guys remember the big blocks, right? You got to break your friends out. Well, don't get frozen, right? If you're on the inside, you take some more damage. That's fine. If you're on the outside, don't run into the middle. Makes it really easy. Yeah, and the big frost ad, that does it, right? Roshi's totally right there. The one that gets empowered gets really strong. And that's it for Frost Phase. That's pretty much it, right? There's the marks of Frost. You're bouncing between players. That's the hardest part to get your heads around. Mark of Frost, have teams of people doing it. It'll bounce to the next closest people that also don't have it. Well, Sparty, could I have all 4 people stacked together and just bounces between them? No, because it'll prefer people that do not have the, I think it's permafrost debuff, whatever it is. So you can't really stack them all together like that. Next ability here, so from Frost he goes into Fire. You'll see little fire beams pointed at us. In this phase, so the Searing Brand, right, there was Mark of Frost, well now it's Searing Brand. So this is the Fire phase. When a Searing Brand happens, he targets different players, and he's going to have little fire ghosts or elementals. Frost now jumps to 1 person on live, they change it. Fantastic. I'll have to make that change to 1 person. Oh. This makes it super easy. We'll see. We'll see what happens on Heroic anyway. I'd rather err on the side of it's going to be a lot more difficult than what it is. But thanks, Ray. So, you'll have little fire elementals running towards you. Do not stand in the path of this beam. That's really important. Do not stand in the path of this beam because you get a fire debuff. Watch what happens. Mark on me. So nobody should be in that path, so stay spread out. If you do have the beam, do not run around. You're going to screw over your melee, which are trying to dodge these beams anyway. So if you have a beam like these guys, this is a really great job by Jungle, I don't know who that is on the left side there, and then someone on the right side there too, and myself. Staying spread out, you get knocked back, these fire elementals ghosts knock you back, and anybody they charge through also gets debuffed. There, we finished off the Frost phase, a little bit slow, but we also had dead DPS. Some people got frozen. So whoever gets the mark, you get a Searing Brand, right? So you get the Searing Brand, the mark. The more people it passes through. So Lurchi, for instance, he stood in the path of that big fire line. He's now marked. He's going to explode. You want to minimize the amount of people that have this debuff on them because of the next thing, the Detonate, right? Detonated in Frost had elementals. Detonating in Fire, going to have more fun stuff. Can you immune off the Frost debuff? I don't think so. The mages might have tried. I can't recall if I tried immuning them. So watch what happens to Detonate. There. So initially, it should have only been 4 puddles. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 puddles, which means 2 of the melee got hit by it, which was completely avoidable. So big puddles of fire on the ground. Well, what do I do for this mechanics party? Don't stand in fire. Really simple, right? So there's the fire. I still got the mark on me doing some damage. Alright, then it goes away. Now, during the next phase, so it always goes from mark to detonated to animate. So Spellblade Aluriel now says animate. Well, guess what? He's going to animate those piles of fire. And they turn into elementals. These elementals, they cast pyroblasts, right? It's pyroblast or pyroclasm, pyroblast. They're interruptible, they're stunnable, they're knockbackable. Do not let them get their cast off. They do more and more damage. So you want to minimize amount of elementals by not getting hit by the brand, right? It's all sort of a, it all links together. If fewer people get hit by the charge, you'll have less elementals, much easier time. Well, Sparty, why can't I just AoE these down? Well, great question. Because for every single elemental within 8 yards of another elemental, they attack faster and they do more damage. So you can't just stack them all. You might be able to. Some guilds, we'll see what happens in strats strats they use, you might be able to just AoE them down, get a big 6-second stun on them, and blow them the hell up. We'll see what happens, right? This one, we were spread out, which is pretty good. And we're casting our stuff here. Trank good. And again, they are a priority target. Right? They are going to murder you. But again, more interrupts, lots of stuns, really easy to do. Pollen Bubble AoE Taunt? Potentially, right? Again, that is the more advanced techniques there. Alright, and that's it for Fire Phase, right? So there's a Brand, there's a Detonate, and an Animate. Okay, well now we're going to go deal with the Arcane Phase. With the Arcane Phase of this encounter, same thing. Like there's balls that you have to dodge, right? Don't stand near the balls. So the boss will be moved at this point, right? They're big exploding purple balls. Just keep their rate together. Makes it super simple. There's not much this one. I think this is one of the easier phases anyway. And now the detonate's going to happen. So when those orbs detonate, watch what happens here. If you guys remember, if you guys remember Garrosh, remember the Garrosh purple swirls, right? That you'd have to run together as a raid. It's very, very similar to that. So the entire raid is stacked because these orbs will target a player. And you want to bait these in a certain spot, right? If you bait them all together, fantastic. Because if you're spread apart, it'll be a lot harder because every time the orbs or the balls land, they spawn an arcane fog on the ground. So there, we're trying to move together as a team. I ran the wrong way there, but I did bait it the other way. So all these orbs coming down, don't stand in them. And you see what they spawn? Purple swirls on the ground. You want to minimize how many purple swirls. Then again, you have a ton of room here, so be very careful. The other big thing is you do want to stack these because you want to AoE the next elementals that spawn. Is it like Archimonde's Fire Patches? They come after raid members? Sort of. I mean, they will target a random player, so if all the players are stacked together, you know you're going to bait them in a certain area. So now these elementals spawn, they're casting Armageddon. And part of the reason you want to stack these together is so you can AoE the crap out of them, right? They have an uninterruptible spell called Armageddon. If you do not interrupt it, you die. Or sorry, if you don't kill them, you die. They're not interruptible. So by stacking them together, instead of spreading apart, you make it a lot easier for your DPS to blow them up. So here we are, murdering all the little elementals. Right, I tried to use my blinding light there, didn't work. They're not stunnable, not interruptible, nothing like that. You have to DPS them down. And I believe you have 20 seconds. Is it 20 seconds to DPS them down? Something like that. And then you go back to Frost Phase. That's it. I mean, it seems really complicated, but you know, we'll see what happens on Heroic again if they've changed it down to 1 Mark of Frost or jumps to 1 person. Again, here's myself and Roshi dealing with the Mark of Frost, and it's going to jump to the 2 closest people. So, if you're not assigned to dealing with the Mark of Frost, don't be near these guys. Is it 30 seconds? Thank you, TBG. Cheese all the way on for the waves. Well, we'll see what kind of cheesing we can do. Yeah, and this fight is great, and Roshi makes a great point, because everything's on a very strict timer. There's no, like, RNG involved. It is completely predictable. It is complete strict timers. Super easy, right? There's no RNG, right? We all hate RNG. There's no such thing as RNG. But yeah, I mean, that's what makes Fight Like Slay Shen really good, because there's no randomness involved. It's always on you. Always assume it. It's very controllable. There's Marks of Frost, right? And then the Pools of Frost, and from the Pools of Frost, what happens? Well, Elemental spawns. So when he does his animate, soon, they're going to collapse. There's the Elementals, while we're still dealing with the last set of Frozen Patches. So again, we're going to stack everything in, tanks pick them up, AoE them down. Again, the big one, the one that's casting Frozen Tempest, is always your priority. So focus this one down, because the longer this one's up, the more damage you're taking in melee. Okay, questions about this one? Outlaw triggering intensifies. You want to AoE, don't you? Yeah, again, so one thing I do want to say, though, please ignore the DPS, the healing, all that stuff. This is, well, I don't know, this is months ago. This one I think was a couple months ago, so well before tuning passes, well before 7.5, before Tuesday's patch. So please ignore the numbers completely. They will be much different come this Tuesday. So I have a question: is if it's going on 2 people after the balls touch, can you just do sets of 4? That's the thing, right? Well, that's what we did. We did 2 sets of 4, right there. Everybody tried to crush the threshold, and they got frozen. So the way it happened for us is it targeted 2 people, and then they let their stacks happen, and then they touched the balls, and it jumped on 2 more people, right? And it rotated back and forth. So those 4 were jumping them back and forth, and another set of 4 were bouncing it back and forth. I anticipate it'll work the same way. Can you handle it with 4? How many stacks of Frostbite were you at? So we were handling like 6, 7 stacks, right? Let's go back a couple seconds here. Let's go back even further. So here it's going to jump. Actually, there's a replicate there. Let's go back even more into the arcane. So myself and Hiroshi, like, honestly, we'll see what kind of damage, because again, the damage scales based off how many players you have in the raid. We were going like 5, 6, 7 stacks. I even got to 12 stacks at one point because one of the mages ran to the wrong spot. So we'll see what happens here with the stacks. Yeah, I mean, everybody was scaled, so yeah. Anyway, Marks of Frost happening here. So this is by the blue marker, since I'm assigned to them. Myself and Hiroshi is going to jump to. You see how we're standing in a good spot? And so the first mark of frost is on 2 people, right? The next mark of frost is, on somebody else, on 2 other people, and they're going to be at green. So watch the next mark of frost. It's going to happen on Eyelid and Brandhisa, so they go to green. So it typically targets range and healers. I'm at 5 stacks, 6 stacks, 7 stacks, and then it expires. So that we felt was fine. Again, I think 5 or 6 might be a safe number. We'll see. Again, we'll see what kind of HP people have. This is all heroic, right? So as I'm going into heroic now with 50 traits, it should not be that much of an issue. If I was going to heroic with 35 traits, I obviously have a lot less HP and gear, so you may not be able to go as high stacks. This is boss 7 Enrage on health percentage, just gets faster and faster. Doesn't get faster and faster, it just rinses and repeats every single time. What other notes that I have here? That's it. Searing Brand, Arcane. I have all these notes, I'm not even reading them. Don't get by balls, touch. Yeah, just rinse and repeat. I don't believe she had an enrage. I don't know what her enrage is. So there. Berserk timer is like 9 minutes. So honestly, you can take a long time to do this. On the live service, you just need 3%. I have to double check how it's going to work on live service. How viable do you think of mass gripping all the elementals and during some rotation in them is? Well, that's what we suggest too, right? Like, maybe some guilds will go, hey, mass grip, bubble mass taunt, and blow them up. So if you look at fire elementals, animate searing brand, pyroblast, and bound in flame, so damage is increased by 200%, and casting speed increased by 100% for every ally within 8 yards. Potentially, I can't recall how much HP they're going to have. If you have enough AoE, yeah, it might work. I think that's what guilds will eventually start doing, is bringing their elementals to one section of the room, right? Let me borrow somebody here. So you might just bring them to one section of the room. There. So let's say you bring all your elementals around here, and then you grip them together, or like, they're in a clump like this, grip them together, stun rotation, AoE them down. Realistically though, how many seconds of a stun are you going to get? 10 seconds tops, right? Right, there's 4 elementals, so again, 10 seconds tops with perfect stuns because of the diminishing returns of your stuns. And then after that, they're immune from stuns. So you better kill them within 10 seconds. How long did it take us? I don't know. Let's take a look again really quick. Let's go back to fire phase. It's arcane. It's frost. Alright, here comes the fire phase soon. There. So Searing Brand, again, targeted, 4 of us. So we should only theoretically get 4 elementals, right? Again, I'm sure it'll change based off your raid size. So if you have 30 people in the raid, like 6 people are going to get targeted. They can be interrupted? Yeah, they can be interrupted as well, but they cast super fast, right? So the 5 of us got it there, or it looks like 6 of us. I think it was a tank as well that also got hit, based off who's taking damage right now. And detonate happens, right? So you may just want to drop them all like near each other. Again, it depends, right? You're gonna have a big patch of fire. You have to be very careful with people that are standing close to each other. Was it 5 that had the brand? Maybe I mistimed it. Or mislooked. Yeah, maybe it was 5. Yeah, I think it's one of those fights where, well, you definitely want to be AoE spec for the elementals, right? At the same time, you don't want this fight to go on forever because your healers run out of mana. So it depends. There's plenty of fights like this that are a fair balance, like Skorpyron, right? Good amount of AoE, single target to make sure we push the boss in time, to meet those enrage checks. Yeah, pretty good one. And yeah, I mean, again, they're interruptible, they're stunnable, you can do whatever you want, knock them back. Solar Beam, I don't know. I mean, we haven't looked at a Solar Beam stun rotation. That's also a pretty good idea, right? Silence them so they can't cast. I don't know if they're silenceable. And there's the Orbs in Arcane. So you want to move away from them ASAP because they will just murder your entire raid. And yeah, the Arcane one is pretty simple. Arcane Orbs spawn near players. Just move the boss away. Keep the raid together, nice and healed, and make it a little easy for your raid. Fire Elementals weren't on the aggro table. Yeah, maybe they weren't. I can't remember. Yeah, they might not be tauntable. But again, we'll see, right? I'm sure guilds will try different things on normal and heroic. And again, this is all based off of PTR testing and beta, and things are going to change for sure. Let's see. Yeah. Also want to recruit Boomkins, TBG. I love some Boomkins. Okay, any other questions? You want the touch the balls before the debuff expires? So try to, no, your question was, should we touch the balls before debuff expires for Frost? Whatever is, because again, the more stacks you have, the more damage you take. So you have to take enough stacks that you are not going to die, but also not be jumping the Frost back and forth constantly. So about 5 stacks is pretty safe to do it. The Searing Brand only target the range, so melee can stand in the opposite side and not get hit. Forearms, no, because Lurchi got marked. So melee will also get targeted by the fire mark. Good question. Can you still immune the Frost debuff? I'm not sure, Yusumat. Yeah, good questions. Do you try the Blood Elf Racial? Who plays a Blood Elf? I don't know. You might be able to silence them with your Arcane Blood Elf thing. When did we hear on this one? I don't know. It depends. You can hear at the start, right? We hear it on the pull, I think, for this one. Just because, well, I think we hear it at the end, actually, just to kill it eventually. Yeah, because we're on 10-minute timer there. We might have heard it during the Arcane phase. I can't recall. I mean, Fire Elementals are the big one. Arcane ones, I think we might have heard it during Arcane phase. Let's go back for a second here. Oops, let's go forward. Apologize for jumping across here. Arcane Orbs. Arcane Orbs. Here comes the Detonate. Again, you're moving as a group here, ideally. So you might want to put markers for your group to move. And again, don't be ahead of your entire group where you get people killed. So there come the little puddles, and from the little puddles spawn the Arcane Elementals. Thanks, GoFax. Thanks a lot, man, for your support. And from the Elementals, you know, AoE them down. Blow them up. Yeah, I guess we hear it during the Arcane phase to blow these up. Because you have 30 seconds, but if you have an Arcane Elemental really far away, you're going to screw over your raid and your DPS. So do try to keep them together to AoE them down. Not interruptible, not stunnable, but yeah, AoE them. And then right to Marker Frost right afterwards. Pretty straightforward encounter. I like it. It was good. I mean, it's predictable. It's no random crap. It's great. People love these encounters. Okay, I think that is it for Spellblade Aluriel. Are they grippable? I would imagine they are. I'm not sure if we had a Death Knight to try that. Yeah, I can't recall. So, that's Spellblade Aluriel in a nutshell. But yeah, we'll definitely be trying. I'm sure other guilds will be trying, or other guilds have tried. Alright, moving on to next boss. What boss was next? Spellblade. Well, I guess after Spellblade Aluriel, you have a choice of where you want to go. We are going to go to Krosus. Krosus is a really cool, simple, fun encounter. Right? Do I have Krosus here? Yeah, I'm going to go to Krosus just because that's what I had in my own little guide. Krosus is a fun one. I guess it's one of our kills. I initially had a mythic video, but Midgets found me a video of mine. So glad I have these videos. Alright. So Krosus is like the boss in Ulduar. Remember the one that has no legs? It's a fairly single target encounter, right? Like Ursock is your better DPS check encounter. Here at the start for this one has a couple of really cool abilities, some really easy ones. It's not that particularly difficult. This is one of the easiest encounters in the instance. It is one of the later encounters, but it'll probably be really punishing in terms of tuning. Yeah, Kolagarn, thank you. Kolagarn is the one I meant. So again, you always link bosses. Whenever you're explaining these bosses or abilities to your guildies, try to use analogies or links to other bosses. Okay. So let's go this way. So we're going to move to Kolagarn. Yeah, single target boss fight. Essentially, you're going to have the raid into two clumps. You'll have a ranged clump and a melee clump. You sort of see us together there. There we are stacked on orange, on Roshi, and then there's a melee clump as well. Tanks are on either side doing their own little thing there. Now, the first ability is fantastic. It's awesome. It's called Fell Beam, right? It's a big Kamehameha from one of his arms. You're dodging left and right. So what's really important here is using a very central position, right? You want to minimize movement, maximize damage. The more you're casting, great. By moving more, you're casting less. So right now, if I was on the far left, I'd have to go to the right side, move a lot more. But because I'm in a very central position, I only need a few steps to the right to dodge his big Fell Beam. The beams will kill you. Then a couple steps, and that's it. That's all you need to do. You don't need to run that far. That's Fell Beam. That's one of his abilities. Super easy to dodge. Your weak aura, or the weak auras, thanks to Fibrilo here, do say go right or go left. Read your weak auras. Or see which hand is glowing and you'll be able to dodge it. Really fun encounter. Alright, next one here is another beam, so just a couple steps to the left. See, some of these guys are running too far to the left. You're cutting into your DPS time, right? Don't obviously, ride that line, but go slightly outside that line to maximize how much damage and healing you're able to do. There's another beam. And next ability, so beam is the one big one. The next one that happens is a slam. All right, so if you can sort of see there are two brown circles, brown balls. The tanks need to stand into those brown circles, and nobody but the tank. Basically, he's going to slam the entire raid. When he slams, the entire raid takes damage. However, if two tanks or two people are standing in those brown circles, the raid takes less damage because you are absorbing you're absorbing his fists with your own, head. So we see Psychomantis there, one of our old druids. He's standing on the left one, and on the right side, I believe, is Towley, the blue marker. So they're standing in that. Melee, do not stand in this. It'll kill you. So there's the first slam. And each time he slams, it is raid-wide damage. After 3 slams, he breaks a part of the bridge. So this is one of those fights. It's like Gwarm. It's a DPS check, but you'll also be moving. Next ability here is Burning Pitches. Now, what we did is we assigned certain people different sections of the room. So the melee were responsible for the left and right sections. We have groups sorted out right now. If you look at our groups, I think it was. Yeah, Group 1 was on the left side somewhere, Group 2 was on the right side, Group 3 was on the back left, and Group 4 was on the back right, because of speed boost and able to get to these. You have to soak these green balls. These green balls are very, very important to soak, because if you don't, then elementals will spawn. And elementals means you're spending more time on elementals than DPSing the boss. So focus on the mechanic first before you're doing your own thing. So I'm going to stand in this one. Well, too many of us are standing in this one. And we covered them all. Oh, we missed one in the back there. So it spawns a Burning Ember. These Burning Embers are shooting like Fell Bursts, but it is interruptible. I believe they were stunnable, and you just murder them, right? So the range in the back there, it makes no sense for a melee to run all the way back and kill that Burning Ember. Range kill it, right? Really simple to do. And then again, the Fell Beams are happening. Where's my next Orb of Destruction? Yeah, and we're straddling the middle line here to minimize movement. Here comes slam number 2. Brown circles. Melee run out of them. Tanks stand in them. And he takes some damage. Now, if tanks were not to stand in there, the raid takes like 5 million damage and you're pretty much going to die. So it is important for tanks to stand in that. Yeah, there's my heals. Alright. Orb of Destruction is the final ability of this fight. It's a very simple fight. Orb of Destruction targets a player, melee, ranged, healer, whatever, non-tank, and it explodes on the raid. It is unavoidable damage. The one thing you can avoid is how much damage you take from it. So if Orb of Destruction is on you, you can see there it's on Valkyrie, who has all that funny language. You run as far back as you can. So gateways are great, speed boosts are great, whatever you can to get the hell out. There. He takes his gateway and he runs all the way back. Watch raid-wide damage. So big orb comes down and does raid-wide damage. But because we're so far away, well, we take less damage. But that gets more complicated later on. So here comes a beam again, a couple steps to the left. Not too far. And we're safe. Alright, now watch. The weak aura says bridge is breaking. You can already see cracks. So every time he slams his hands down, he starts creating more cracks in that bridge. After 3, so here comes the next slam number 3, the bridge is going to break. If you are standing here, you are going to die. You cannot swim. So the bridge is now broken, and now we have less room to contend with. Which means, well, it'll be easier to soak those little puddles, the burning ember puddles. However, the Orb of Destruction damage, because we have less room to move, well, it'll be a lot harder to do. So we'll take more damage. So here's the beam, really simple, dodge it, and back to the middle. Here comes Orb of Destruction, so he runs out, but again, that was on one of our mages there, but because there's less room now, right, because we have such a smaller bridge, we'll take more damage from that orb. That was on Firemancer, so he blinked out, which was good. So here comes slam number 1. Those are the brown circles. And Orb of Destruction, as well as beams. So here comes the Fell Beam, go left. Again, these beams will kill you. So move. You have Path of Frost. There's Burning Pitches. So again, less room. Right? So it'd be easier to dodge or to soak these. So we missed one. There's a Burning Ember. I stunned it. Right? Completely stunnable. Murder them before they start casting. There comes slam number 2. Right? So it's more and more damage. And now we have Fell Beams coming up. So even the tank should be dodging these Fell Beams. You see the bear move? The bear should be moving as well. So don't get hit by any of these beams. They will just absolutely murder you. Super avoidable. Just see which way it's moving. Or as a raid leader, you can call, hey, move to left, right? That makes it a lot easier. If you're using boss modes like VEM, again, they will also say, hey, move left or move right. There's Orb of Destruction. We'll take more and more damage. And the bridge is going to break. So you can see the cracks already forming on the bridge. Right in front of me. Here comes a slam. Everybody's running. Run, run, run. And now we have a very small bridge. And so same thing, rinse and repeat until the bridge is eventually gone and you no longer have a bridge. The Berserk on this is 5 minutes, I believe. So he breaks this chunk of bridge and then the last one and that's it. But we killed it on this one, so whatever. Between, normal, heroic, mythic, not many changes. On mythic, the little elementals, there's way more of those little things to soak. But also the elementals get charged up and they get a lot more energy, and they have to be prioritized down a lot more. But it is a pretty straightforward encounter. One thing you guys will have to do is just organize your cooldowns, that kind of stuff, based on, when you want your damage reduction cooldowns or your HPS cooldowns, things like that. Gateways are going to be really helpful. Speed boosts are really helpful, and then assigning where you are soaking those embers. Because again, the goal is to have as few embers as possible, which means stop your F and DPS and go soak embers. Do any of the abilities overlap? Not so much. The closest overlap you'll get is like an Orb of Destruction and I don't even think it overlapped there. An Orb of Destruction, which is the big one you have to run back, as well as a Fell Beam, right? Which just means we'll run to the other side. If you have, if you leave the, let's go back here a couple seconds. If you, the slams, slams and Orb of Destruction doesn't overlap, so it is pretty staggered in terms of damage, pretty easy to heal. If you leave the embers up too long, well, you might be contending with embers and dodging and Orbs of Destruction. So again, by eliminating embers, the fight is that much easier. It is a super, super easy fight. FR didn't hit him. Oh, Demon Hunter stuff. Yeah, and like Roshi says, the only overlaps that happen are when elementals are up. And yeah, we had plenty of attempts where we actually destroyed the bridge on purpose to see, the different damage that would happen. But yeah, and that's what's left of the bridge now, right? And then this chunk of the bridge, like the purple and orange section, gets broken off, and then you're pretty much screwed at the end there, because it will break the entire bridge, and then you definitely die. That is the final Berserk section. Any questions with this one? Could rogues tank that mechanic possibly with Feint? Potentially. I don't think we tested it. I'm not sure how immunities handle it as well, so if a Tally bubbled, we'd have to ask Tally, or check my notes on my guild page, whether immunities worked for soaking it. Because later on, you know, if a tank dies, well, somebody has to soak it, right? Because the damage itself from Krosus, whoops, where is it? So Krosus, where are you, mister? His slam. So it does, 5 million damage to the entire raid on heroic. You don't have that kind of HP. So either your entire raid dies, or let's say your tank is dead. Well, what do? Sacrifice yourself. Communicate, hey, Sparty's going to sacrifice himself, either with a bubble or just, and die, rather than the entire raid wiping. I mean, your tank shouldn't die. The tank damage was not that difficult here. Yeah, and obviously you need somebody in melee range or else he does this, but again, I didn't really cover that because it's not that important. Can you be someone out of the water? I don't know. We might have tried. I think we tried and it did work. I can't recall. And yeah, Searing Brand is it's a super easy mechanic, just a tank swap. But again, it's great. It's a great encounter that is pretty easy with strict timers. So get the embers, DPS boss, super easy, go collect loot. We'll see what kind of tuning it does though. It has though, right? So if the tuning is super difficult, again, right, you might need more traits or more gear to defeat it, but same thing I said earlier, the only encounter in Nighthold that is tuned to 54 traits is Mythic Gul'dan. So all you all your heroic raiders, your early mythic raiders, that kind of stuff, the average mythic guild, you don't necessarily need 54 traits to defeat these bosses, and obviously gear helps, but it's just going to help you a lot more on these heroic and mythic encounters. All right. Any other questions about Krosus? I swear to God, that is a great question. Devs, why can't we loot more? Like, why can't more than one person go in a chest at the same time? It aggravates our raid leads and our loot masters and everybody else. So, yeah. All right. Moving on to the next boss. So again, weak auras is something you should be inputting as well. The weak auras command is here. Weak auras command is there. So again, pull up your weak auras. That was Krosus, right? So we're going to pull up Krosus. Copy there. Copy import string. Import, and there are Krosus's fun little things. Go left, right? Oh look, or go right. It tells you if you're on the right side, right? Go right, go left, whatever. Or just it tells you move that way. To soak, if you're a tank. The debuff as well up top here. Time left on your orb of detonation, or your your orb shit here. But yeah, great stuff. Good stuff. Thanks a lot for Krosus there. Did I import Spellblade? I did not. So might as well get Spellblade then. Spellblade. Before we move on to the next boss. Oops. There we go. And let's import this one. Again, these weak auras have all been tested by Fibrilo. They're all safe and approved and that kind of stuff. Again, those are all the fun abilities on Spellblade Aluriel that we just covered. Where are you reading or hearing that Mythic Gul'dan is the only fight with 54 traits? I have insider developer knowledge. I go for beers with developers, right? Like that's how I know. Share with whatever you want. I don't care. I don't have proof to give you, but I also have no reason to lie. Hey, McAfee. All right. So, what are the questions? Any other questions about Krosus before we move on to next boss? All right. Let's go on to, I guess, Tichondrius. I mean, at this point, like, when you defeat Spellblade Aluriel, you have so many different ways you can go. We can move on to Tichondrius, which is also a fun boss that I did. It's really cool. I like Tichondrius. Tichondrius is a lot of fun. Mostly because, I mean, he's Jaina's half-brother, right? Because he's a Dreadlord. But yeah, let's go over Tichondrius. Oops, not this one. Here we go, Tichondrius. Load it up. All right. And Ray, say that question for the end. I'm totally happy to answer that afterwards. All right, so Tichondrius. Tichondrius is a Dreadlord, one of the fun bosses that you've seen in the story for a while. Has pretty typical Dreadlord style abilities with carrying plague and carrying swarms and spawning shit, and bats, of course, because there's always bats when these things fly away. So let's start off with Tichondrius. So Carrion Plague and Seeker Swarm are I would say, the most important abilities of this encounter. Basically, it's a multiple phase encounter that gets harder as it progresses. The more DPS you have, great, because it is a timed-based encounter, so you're able to actually skip phases later on. The first phase is Tichondrius. So here we have different markers set up for where we want him tanked. Carrion Plague is a debuff that spawns on random players. Healers, ranged, and sometimes melee. So we'll see who it targets here in a second. Carrion Plague about to happen. And what all it does is it's a dot right there. So Roshi and Brandhista right now, have Carrion Plague. So they need to run away from the raid. But they need to move to a spot that is going to be safe. Because, like Spellblade Aluriel, right, the fire elementals that charged, Seeker Swarm interacts with Carrion Plague. And you want to have as few people as possible with Carrion Plague. So watch what happens. So there's Brandhista and Roshi, those good team players that they are. They're running away. Now, from Tichondrius to Roshi and Brandhista, there will be a straight line. That is what Seeker Swarm is going to hit. So they're spread out. Now, as a melee, you don't want to be in the line of this, because you will then get Carrion Plague yourself. And if you have Carrion Plague, well, then you'll be targeted by Seeker Swarm. So Seeker Swarm is about to happen. It'll only target those two players. There. So again, the whole arrows things, that's gone, right? The weak auras that showed arrows and where to move, that's all gone. You'll no longer have that. We had it for testing because we just had it for testing at that point. So you see those two people are going to get targeted. Nobody else should have got hit, and nobody else did. Now we have Carrion Plague happening again. Now target Lurchi, Natoro, and Rolo. So 3 people this time. Okay, well, great. So guess what? Rolo is going to join the 2 healers. Natoro is going to join the healers. And Lurchi will be on the opposite side. So there's various strats of this boss. But you see the arrows, right? They're at the top side of the screen. That's where the Seeker Swarm is going. You can't be in that line. Because we have a certain designated safe zone for our melee, no melee should ever get hit by a swarm either, right? As long as you're positioned intelligently. So that's where the brunt of phase 1, right? It's a debuff. You want to minimize the amount of debuffs because it gets a pain in the ass to heal, right? Like, it's super, super annoying. The other thing, and we're going to go back here a couple seconds, is the phase 1. I guess we can go Echoes. Echoes is the other ability in this phase. What it does, it spawns 4 big pillars in the room. Think of them as pillars like... what's that Hellfire Citadel boss? The one with pillars, the Fel Lord Zakuun, or the boss in Archway. Similar kind of pillars. Now, when he does Echoes of the Void, when he stops casting it, he channels it there, you take damage every half second. What you need to do is hide behind the pillars, right, to not take damage. And so you see me running over to a pillar. There are 4 pillars in the room. They spawn generally in the same area, not always the same spots, but just hide behind them. You can use immunities to not take damage, whatever. And you go back to your spots. So the plague people are still over there, and the non-plagued people are over here, away from them. Now, the other, and second most important ability that Tichondrius has is he spawns little bloods, right? Yeah, those are Brand of Argus. Good question, Devious. He spawns little bloods, and they need to be AoE'd ASAP. Now, Tichondrius, because he's a Dreadlord, he has a Vampiric Aura, right? Whenever you played the Ancients, Warcraft 3 Ancients thing, Vampiric Aura was amazing. So anything that is near him gets Vampiric Aura. So these bloods, whenever they hit the tank, and now there'll be 4 or 5 bloods spawning, they will fixate the other tank, or whichever tank it is, and every time they hit him, they're pretty much going to heal to full. So you can't kill them. There's 2 ways to tackle them. Either you move the boss away, because it's easier to move the boss away than it is to move all the ads away, or you do a stun rotation. And with a strong stun rotation, the 9 seconds, they should be able to die. They cannot, under any circumstances, hit that tank. So whichever strat you want to employ, totally up to you. So here we had the blood spawn. We actually used a stun rotation. You see them healing up to full. all while you're dealing with Seeker Swarms, right? All those things too. And then you need to die pretty quickly. There's Carrion Plague on me. I'm going to join my friends in this little line. So here, we pulled the boss away. They lost their Vampiric Aura, and then the Taint is gone. Or sorry, they killed the Bloods. And now Seeker Swarm happens again, so more and more players will get hit by Seeker Swarm. You still see, though, a bunch of players, Eyelid, Firemancer, Braindead, Elandril, Valk, Altaris, they don't have the debuff. At this point, after you go through 2 Echoes of the Void phases, so now we're going to go hide again. And, I mean, the very simple benchmark on this fight is the Bloods need to be dead before Echoes of the Void, in general. Kill them before the Echoes. So here we're hiding again, use your cooldowns. I can't remember if there might have been line of sight issues on these pillars. And now phase 2 happens. Phase 2 is pretty cool. He turns into little bats and stuff. And now, for those of you who remember the Black Hold, the last boss, can't remember his name, but he does the big beam in the middle of the room. Same exact thing. Big green beam, don't stand in. If you stand in there, you die. Let's see if anybody dies. Nope, nobody died. The other thing that's going to happen is these bats will spawn. You need to there's no boss to kill, so you have to kill the bats as soon as you can. AoE them down, whatever you need to do. They will drop an orb. This orb gives you a DPS and healing buff as well as a mana restore, which is great because you get to burn through all your mana. Once you go into this phase, get all your mana back, which is why Beacon of Virtue might be usable here, but we'll see. But yeah, you get to burn through all your mana, get everything back. Ideally, prioritize getting your DPS this buff first. Right, so you can see their Ganor, Panzer, Lurch, you have the buff. I'm not going after buff right now because I'm a healer. So I'm letting my DPS get it first, so they will be able to kill more of these bats. And you see the purple orbs there? They're like just spheres, right? Balls. I don't think I got one. There, I got one at the end there, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I got one at the end. Yeah, and now for 30 seconds coming out of this phase, you have a huge DPS increase, healing increase, and mana restore. So my mana is going to go up, start shooting up. You can see my mana start shooting up there. Everyone's doing a lot more damage, and you're able to kill these Bloods much more effectively. And when you get out of this phase, your Carrion Plague, it all goes away. So it's reset back to 0. That's phase 1 and phase 2. And then the next thing that happens, so every time you go back to phase 1 is you'll get more ads spawning. So in addition to Bloods, which we've been dealing with, we flip them around. So we flip the boss to the opposite side now because ads spawn near the doorways. So these Fellsworn Spellguards, they are not fun. Basically, they're going to melee people, and when they occasionally give you a debuff, you will drop off an Arcane Puddle. It's really important not to drop off Arcane Puddles on your raid or where you're going to be standing for Echoes of the Void, the big pillar thing, right? So you don't want to be standing, dropping them near pillars. So we'll see what happens here. We move the boss away because of Vampiric Aura, right? Vampiric Aura affects these the Nightborn things as well. There's Seeker Swarm, hit some people. Wish I had a better vantage point. There, you see those purple swirls on the left side there? People had the debuff. That's where they dropped it off. That was a good spot for them to drop it off, by the way. So somewhere off to the side there. If somebody had dropped it here, well, then we couldn't hide behind the pillar, and we'd be screwed. So be intelligent where you drop off these puddles. So here we're hiding. Echoes of the Void. And then back to our spots. Rinse, repeating. Alright, again, Seeker Swarm. So we're all standing in a line here, so it doesn't clip other people. Alright, we don't want it to apply to other people. It makes it really easy to dodge. We're probably going to adjust the shroud a little bit, though. Oh, Psycho died. Yeah, at this point we had some difficulties on this one, but we did have like 3 tanks on it anyway. So again, we decided to pull the boss away because we found that really easy for Vampiric Aura, as well as dealing with the Nightblade, or the Nightborn guys. Echoes of the Void number 2. So again, you'll always deal with 2 Echoes of the Void during this phase, and then back to a phase 2 with the bats. Okay, and then back to this phase. You still have the debuff, right? It will start expiring at this point. right? 14 seconds on mine right now. And you can see the purple buffs on people's raid frames. That is the actual buff that they're going to be getting. So make sure everybody in your raid has this buff. You want to kill all these bats, murder them. Let the DPS get it first, so they're able to kill these bats quickly. Oops. Kill, kill, kill. Again, those purple orbs. There, I've got one. I don't think anybody... Yeah, everybody got an orb at that point, which is great. So same thing, Carrion Plague. We do the same kind of position. Well, when you come out of this phase now, you get an additional add. You'll start with the Nightborn, like the Bloods again. The Nightborn Watchers, right? The whatever. So the Nightborn guys, and then Sightless Watchers. Sightless Watchers are a big pain in the ass, and they complicate this fight even more. So watch what happens when they spawn. So he should be spawning in the middle section. So there you can see them teleporting in, and through the middle sort of alcove, a Sightless Watcher spawns. This Sightless Watcher. Tough to be moved, right? He's going to be casting a lot. He is the priority. You want to prioritize this guy as much as you can because he casts a debuff on your healers that drains their mana and does damage. So unless you want your healers to run out of mana, you need to kill this guy ASAP. If you have a debuff, so as a healer with a debuff, you run out because when you dispel it, it damages people around you. It's a little explosion. Similar to, the Helya one, right? When you're doing Helya on Maw Souls, little green thing. I mean, it does AoE explosion, but you drop off a little debuff. So don't be near anybody when you dispel that debuff. Let's see, once he starts. There's Burning Soul. So Burning Soul is on me at this point. It's on me. I need to run out. I dispel myself, and I run back in. Right? This is where the fight gets really, really tricky, because you're dealing with all these things, and the Bloods, and everything else. The Sightless Watchers, they also get the Vampiric Aura, so again, you want to murder them. This is a good place to use Hero as well, because you need them down really, really quickly. And at this point, we have another Sightless Watcher spawning, and things are starting to fall apart, because we've got a Sworn Spellguard there, hitting people getting debuffed. It's a giant massacre at this point. So at this point, you may just want to burn the boss. Right? I mean, tanks are going to get hit here, you're going to be dealing with a lot of shit. Again, it gets really complicated in that last phase. So... and we killed Tichondrius. I mean, this was just normal. Now, the other ability that is not mentioned, not in this video, is called Brand of Argus. Brand of Argus is not a fun ability. So it starts on Heroic and then on Mythic as well. And I don't know if I have any videos here. I know Fat Boss has a video if you guys want to watch their video. But basically, it spawns on a person, and it does more and more damage. When you bring people to that person, they explode, right? And the closer you are to that explosion, the more damage you take. So ideally, let's give you guys a little bit of a diagram, because I like diagrams or markers. So let's say, Tichondrius is right here by the stairs, right? And I have Brand of Argus. So if I have Brand of Argus, I'm running around here, and my friends need to run over to me, or I guess they're going to run to a clump, and then the Brand of Argus explodes. Where are you, Brand of Argus? Wrong fight. Brand of Argus here. So you'll do a lot of damage to players nearby, but it also knocks you back and things like that. So you do want it to expire. You don't want to have these marks of Argus on people forever, because at some point you're going to have to stack. Well, when do you stack? Well, you stack in when you're hiding during the Echoes of the Void, right? You're all stacked in. If everybody were to run together and with these Brands of Argus, then you're going to wipe the raid, because they're all going to be exploding at the same time. So the goal is to control the explosions of the Brand of Argus by having people run into you, and then you get knocked back, and then it's fine. But don't do it in melee. So this typically targets ranged and healers. It's a ranged and healer style ability. And yeah, just be really far. If the boss is over here by blue, then Brands are going to dropping over here by purple, and all my friends are going to run over to me right here, and then we explode, not near the melee, preventing how much damage they do, or they take. Again, it's more and more fights. It's more and more complicated fights. The more abilities. I don't think I have a heroic one to show you guys here. But yeah, it gets more complicated when you have Seeker Swarms and Brand of Argus and everything else. And then on Mythic, when you have that Brand of Argus, you actually drop green puddles on the ground. So you'll have less room to contend with through the duration of the fight. So positioning is even more important. So what questions do people have here? I'm guessing it would change the positioning around orange, since right now it could be both go off at the same time. What was your question, Devious? Why are you in a line not stacking when you have the Storm? Can you get it twice? I believe when we had testing, we were able to get second applications of it, which is why we had the initial Shredder just stack in a line. But I know the guides here may have something different, right? So there's a couple guides out there. There's the Heroic Guide that's linked for you guys here, and there's the Minimalist Guide that people have been sharing as well. Feel free to share those with your guilds. You know, they have very similar strats. Where's Tichondrius on these guys? Krosus, Botanist, Tichondrius. Yeah, and that's it. Like they have different strat as well for Plague Peoples. But again, you try to not stack these debuffs, right? Like right here, we're in a line, right? So the debuff does not overlap. Because I recall it did overlap, or we did get second stacks or something. Which is why we did that strat and not just everybody stacked in on one clump. Right, everybody was spread out along the line there. Yeah, brands always went out in pairs. So Brand of Argus, 2 people would have it. Then you'd have, you know, 4 people, and then 4 people run toward that person, and then blow it up. What other questions do people have here? Both go at the same time. Not sure what you asked. Okay, let me know if there's any questions on Tichondrius. Again, these fights can be pretty complicated. For those of you that haven't done testing, they're quite complicated. It'll take a little bit of learning for players, because I think these fights are way more complicated than almost anything you've done in Emerald Nightmare. They're way more complicated. Okay, I guess no questions. Okay, we're going to be moving on to the next boss. Alright, next boss. What have I not done yet? What time is it anyway? Oh, it's only been 2 hours? We're actually making a really good time. Okay. We can move on to... Let's move on to Star Augur. Star Augur, I didn't get to test, but I'm pretty well versed in it from the research I've done. And then we have Towley's stream to thank for this one. Let's close this bad boy down. This is Star Augur. Star Augur is a really... they're all really cool bosses. Star Augur you guys are going to like, because it is a super, super pretty boss. Think of like Algalon. It's just absolutely beautiful. Did you cover the phase 2 beam? Getting hit by it stuns you? I just told them they're going to get killed. Don't get hit by the beam in phase 2. Yeah, I think it'll be like Gorfian level of wipes. It'll be a big roadblock for a lot of players, Jesters. I think you're right. Okay, so I'm not going to cover class stuff now. If you guys have class questions, wait till the end. But we're going to go through encounters specifically one at a time. So Star Augur is really, 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 really cool. I'm really disappointed I didn't get to test him, but he seems awesome. So we're going to watch Towley's perspective of this, because Towley tested this back in Worlds of Draenor, back before Legion was live. So Star Augur is a fun fight. It goes through multiple phases, and the abilities, they change throughout the entire encounter, but you're dealing with the same style of abilities. Excuse me. The first ability is the coronal ejection, as well as the cast. Now, the boss never moves. He will always be in the middle of the platform, no matter what. Starburst is the tank ability here, so tank's taking a little bit of damage. There's only 2 abilities in the first phase. First phase is from 100 to 90%. We heroed here, I don't know why, whatever. So yeah, Star Augur being burst down. Now what's going to happen is coronal ejection. Hopefully we get it for the timer. And yeah, the ejection happens, it does some damage to players. It's not a big deal. You can see there on the raid frames on the right side there, Eyelid, Elandril, Lurchi, and Valk got hit with it. It's just a small debuff. Not a big deal. But it does change later on. So now, we go into the next phase. So now, you can sort of see in the background, Towley's got a really bad perspective of this. The room starts breaking apart, sort of like Kael'thas, and you're getting into space, and there's stars everywhere. It's a visually... it'll blow you away. Honestly, you should spend a wipe just looking at the stars. It's that cool. So, with the abilities here, the first one that we'll go through is the Ice Burst. And basically what happens is the tank keeps taking damage. It's a really small ability. It's any players nearby the tank, so that's why there's nobody near Towley. They take damage as well. Super, super easy. Just don't send you the tank. The debuff from phase 1 returns as well. So there's the Ice Bursts. Alright, Ice Burst, Ice Burst, Ice Burst, which is fine. Take some more damage. Alright, Gravitational Pull. So when Towley... When things are being attracted to Towley, right, he has a gravitational pull upon him. He is actually having comets land on him because of his... How popular he is, right? So on the left side of his screen, on the top left, you see these impact incoming. That's his weak aura that says, hey, I've got a comet on me. So watch what happens. Comet's going to land here. So at this point, we switch tanks. 3, 2, 1. And a comet lands on him. So now he has a stack of this debuff. This debuff keeps getting reapplied more and more and more. So it'll stack higher and higher and higher. It does a lot of damage. And the only way to get rid of it is by having your players run over to you, 3 players run over to you, and take that frost debuff away from you. So they're sharing your heat with the tank, and you take that debuff off him. So that's the frost debuff right there. Oops, sorry. Back to my note there. Well, why can't you just have the same people run over and over and over? Well, look what happened to these guys. They get frozen. If you have the frost debuff already, if you already soaked it off your tank and you try to go again, you're stunned for 10 seconds. So this is why you're going to have a rotation of probably 2 groups of 3 or 3 groups of 3 rotating in and out to soak that debuff off the tank. Because if you allow this debuff to stack too many times, your tank will die because it's so much incoming damage. And here comes the last comet. 3, 2, 1. There. And at this point, they're going to swap. So now Psychomantis will have that debuff. So in the first phase, there was that, what's it called? The little arcane ability that came out. This one will be frost infused, so the abilities change based off which element against it, like Spellblade Aluriel. You can see them running off to the side there, dropping off their debuffs, because they will explode to anybody nearby. It does a shit ton of damage. So if you have a blue circle around you, run away from the group. If you are near somebody else, you will kill them. So you can see on the right side of the screen there, the players are staggered. They're overlapping them, but they're not on top of each other, because they will kill each other. And so whoever has it here, somebody was really slow. Oh, they're really slow. That was Elandril. So he did a ton of damage. He killed one of the hunters here, looked like. So it does a lot of damage to the entire raid. And I mean, that's mostly it for the frost phase. Yeah, you'll cast. So the only other thing is the icy ejection, right? There's ejections, which are the raid-wide abilities. You'll cast it on more and more people each time. So the first time you might get like 2, and then 3, and then 5, and then 7. So lots of people are moving out. And each phase changes based off percentage. So it is a bit of a DPS check here as well. Otherwise, everyone's going to start getting the pulsating, the ejections on them. And then the last ability is the Frigid Nova. When's the Nova casting here? What is it? Is it a timer? I don't know. Basically what Frigid Nova does is it does a shit ton of damage, but the more people that are stacked in together, the less damage it does. So if you have nearby friends giving you body heat, you will take less damage, which makes it a lot easier to deal with. I don't think the timer is on here on his screen. Yeah, no, I don't think they really dealt with it. But that Frost Nova, where is it here? Star Augur. Yeah, Frigid Nova. It does 4.2 million damage. Again, that's more HP than you guys have. But for each player up to 4 that you have nearby you, keeping each other warm, you reduce that damage. So you'll take 1 million damage from it. Really easy to deal with. For the most part, most guilds had dealt with this ability by stacking together. That made it a lot easier. Oops, wrong one. Novas don't happen on normal. Maybe that's why. Yep, Novas don't happen on normal. So that was, I guess that's why it was a normal one. Thank you. Thanks for the correction. So anyway, Novas are there. And then they'll deal with so at 60%, he transitions into the Fell phase. So his abilities, his casts turn into to Fell energy. It's no longer frost. You don't deal with any of that frost stuff. But there's still the ejections. There's still a gravitational pull, right? The comets that come down. There's still a Nova. So you see Fell Nova happening there 50 seconds. With the Frost Nova, stack in. With the Fell Nova, run away. With the Fell Nova, which is going to happen in 50 seconds, the further you are away from the boss, the less damage you take. Because it'll murder you if you're really close. So you should be by the edges of the room. And someone's going to ask me here, hey, can you fall off the edges? I don't know. I'm sure they tried. I don't think so. I'm pretty sure there's an invisible wall that you cannot fall off the edge, though I'm sure your players would find out very quickly. Here comes the Fel Ejection. That'll be the first ability we deal with. Show you guys what happens. Fel Ejection is basically it's a debuff. It's a dot over time. And now what it does, think of it as the poison debuff on Renferal. It's a ticking debuff, and you are dropping puddles, or the Serpentrix debuff. If you guys remember Serpentrix in Eye of Ashara, same kind of thing. You're dropping puddles wherever you're standing. So don't drop them in melee, run them away. Most guilds will have a designated section to drop these puddles off to make it really easy rather than scattered all over the room. So watch. See those guys that have it? There are right now 1, 2, 3, 4, like there's 6 players that have the debuff right now. They're all going to use one side of the room to drop it off. You're going to keep moving it, dropping it off on the far right side of the screen. Yeah, they want to use one side. And now what happens is, so in the second phase with the Frost, you had that Ice Comet coming down, right? You have to soak. With the Fel Comets, they land on a tank, they do damage to everybody nearby, however, they will clean up the Fel Puddles. So the puddles are coming down right now. So you see our other tank, Psycho, he ran to the far side there. He's going to start cleaning it up. And you'll see Tally do this later. There. Puddle, yeah, the Comet lands, and he starts cleaning it up. Another pull here. And he's cleaning up as much of this room as he can. So ideally, when you have this debuff, try to use the same side, because you're going to make it really difficult for your tanks by spreading everywhere, right? Stay nice and close. Use one small section of the room, if possible, to deal with it. Yeah, we missed Psycho. Gravitational pull. So Fel Nova should have happened at this point, but because it's on normal, it doesn't happen. So look what Tally does. Tally runs over here. He starts cleaning it up, right? Good job, Tally. He's going to horse over soon, I think, to the opposite side. There. Where's your horse? Horse! I guess not. There you go. There's his horse, and he goes clean it up. So, again, Paladins might be really good at this too, right, for their Crusader ability. And that's pretty much it. I mean, it's the same abilities, they get infused by different elements, and they change slightly, which is really cool, because you're dealing with the same stuff, you are learning as raiders, but it gets cooler every single time. And now the last one will be Arcane, or Void rather. Did I miss one? Anyway, so that's pretty much it. There's the Comets, which are landing on tanks. Comets is always a tank ability, you're cleaning up puddles. If the debuff is on you, you're dropping puddles somewhere off to the side. Beyond that, the Fel Nova, which is the Hork ability, move away from the boss. Alright, we're going to transition to the next phase soon. Yeah, they're cleaning up the puddles there. There's the ejection on Ariana, Elandrel, and Indy. Gravitational pull, and Tally's going to go clean up again. Good job, Consuela. Good job. All right, so now we've transitioned into the next phase. This is the Void phase. So again, like more of the room gets like split apart, but because of Tally's view, you can't see it. Like it's such a magnificent room that you guys can get blown away by, like Algalon style, really cool. So, the Void phase is the last phase of this encounter. It is a little bit more complicated, pretty fun as well. Let me go with my notes. There. Tank ability phase 2. Alright, so, first ability is Void Burst. Void Burst is super simple. Basically, it does damage on you, or the tank, and you rotate it. Now, when it expires, it jumps to 2 more people. So if you guys remember doing Sinestra, for those of you that are old school raiders, remember that healing buff that when you dispelled it, it jumped to 2 players, and then jumped to even more players, and it was super annoying. Very similar style thing here. So you want to keep your stacks as low as possible. So the tank has it, taunts off, it jumps 2 other people, and that 2 jumps to 4, and then to 8, and then 16, and it just keeps jumping and jumping and jumping, getting higher and higher stacks when it expires. So you want to minimize how many stacks you have. So at this point, Psycho has 3 stacks. That's 4 stacks. Yeah, that's too many. Anyway, so you want to minimize how many stacks because it's going to jump to the rest of your players. In addition, you have little Voidlings spawn. Voidlings are super annoying. If they melee you, they will give you more stacks of this debuff, right? It's basically a dot. The more stacks of the dot, the worse you are off. I can't recall if they were stunnable. Somebody can correct me there. I'm pretty sure they're stunnable. AoE them down. They're not a huge priority. Just AoE them if you can. They're really simple to deal with. And then very soon we'll have the next ability here. Void Nova is also something that happens on Heroics. There's always a Nova, right? From Frost to Fel to Void Nova. Void Nova just does AoE damage and gives everybody 1 stack of the debuff. So you want to have as few stacks as possible. Again, that's where you would use some of your major cooldowns. Now, the other really cool thing about this encounter is the ad, right? It's called Thing Which Should Not Be. It's the thing which should not be. It's a big-ass ad that casts a Witness the Void cooldown. And basically, you know, the big gravitational pull, right? Well, you pull down a comet that had a Void as a tank. So the off-tank should be pulling it away. Because if you're too close with the thing that should not be named to the boss, he doesn't take any damage, right? Think of it like Hellion and Heimdall. Sorry, Herja and Heimdall. If they're too close, they don't take damage. So it's a thing that should not be named. And it's tanked really far away. It is a priority target. You want to burn the crap out of this thing, if at all possible. You're still AoEing the Voidlings. You're blowing the crap out of this thing. This is where you may want to use your hero as well. And now, Witness the Void, it does damage. And then if you're facing it, so you guys remember that boss in Vault, where if you're facing the eyes, you get disoriented? Well, this will Fury you for 8 seconds. That's bad. That's 8 seconds of not doing anything, but thumbs up your asses. Let's see if anybody gets feared here. So Tally turns himself away. Good job, Tally. And they're back to this. Witness the Void cooldown. I think they killed it for the second one here, so they just absolutely blew it up. Witness the Void. Yeah, they killed it for the second one. But again, tank it away from the raid. It is a priority target, and then burn the boss. Again, killing these Voidlings. Because you can see there, on the right side of the screen, Tally has good raid frames. He's tracking how many debuffs these guys have. And the more debuffs you have, the more damage you're going to take. So right now, Ganor, Ashtanga have 16 stacks. That's quite a bit of damage. Again, Void Burst, same thing. Like, he's going to give you more stacks. Let it expire. Gravitational pull on Tally. So Tally's going to run away. Right, he wants to run as far as... There, so you can't fall off. Tally just tried. The Comet will land on him in a second. The thing which should not be. So he's tanking off to the side there. Because we were so close to killing the boss, I think they said, hey, just burn the boss at this point. But that's what it looks like. It looks like a Void thing, which might allude to some really cool lore in the future, right? More Void bosses. But yeah, it's a really fun boss from what I've seen. Really pretty. You can see sort of the stars in the background. But again, when the stuff breaks away, it's really Algalon, really looking cool, stuff like that. Witness of the Void. Tally turns away. Otherwise, again, you do get feared. There's nobody getting feared right now that I see. I hope not. But yeah, it causes you to run around. You're not doing anything at that point. So no, know that. Again, pretty straightforward encounter. Pretty fun. Let me know if there's any questions about this one. Star Augur. How much damage was that thing doing in that last phase? Where are you? Void Ejection, Void Nova. No, that's not it. Yeah, I think it's the Void Ejection, just more damage. And Void Bursts. Void Impact, where am I here? Yeah, 84,000 damage, and it's stacks. So 84,000 damage per stack. That can get quite high. I don't know what the plan will be. I really don't care, honestly. Will I do Stargar before Tichondrius? Probably. I think it's a much simpler encounter than Tichondrius. Tichondrius will be pretty complicated. Stargar, not so much. I think the amount of movement involved in Tichondrius is quite high, and it'll be a big roadblock for a lot of players getting used to it. Similar to, again, Gorfine, somebody mentioned earlier. Oh, you missed your favorite boss, Miranda, sorry. Any other questions? Let me see, what questions do we have here? No, there's no questions on Stargar. Again, pretty simple fight, pretty fun. That leaves us with 3 bosses left. We'll do High Botanist next. And High Botanist is also the other boss I did not test, but I'm pretty well versed with its mechanics and abilities as well. So again, we'll be using one of Towley's videos because he was doing that. How do you get stacks? Only by Nova and Voidlings or mechanics? So, okay, good question. So the Voidlings, where are they? Little Voidlings, where are you? Void Eruptions. So a Void 1 Horror whose melee strike inflicts shadow damage, and they give you Bursting Void, which gives you more Void Burst stacks, right? More of those Void things. Void Burst is that's the ability, right, for healers and tanks. So when it falls off, it starts splitting to more and more people. The other thing is Void Nova. That gives you a stack of Void Burst, right? The big ability in that last phase is Void Burst, and it acts as a bit of a soften rage, because the longer the phase goes on, the more Void Burst you're going to have, and then your raid's going to start slowly falling apart. So, but yeah. Botanist should be also a fun one. So Botanist is also a really complicated one that I think guilds will have a lot of difficulty with because of a number of mechanics that it has and how they interact with each other. Star Augur, I think, is super easy. Krosus is super easy. Grand Magistrix, Star Augur, and Botanist are a little bit more complicated, and you'll see exactly why. So we will pull up Tali's video. Where are you? Tali, hi Botanist Tel'arn. All right. So, hi, Botanist. He is a big weed drug dealer or whatever. He is a really cool fight because I've always wanted a fight like this, where it's, typical council fights are like, okay, so it's really hard at the start. You guys remember the Council Throne of Thunder? Really hard at the start, easier and easier and easier as it went on, right, in general, because you killed some of the council. Other councils share HP, so when they share HP, you just deal with the same thing over and over and over. This one is a lot more fun because it gets more complicated as the fight goes on. It turns from a single boss encounter to a council-style boss encounter. Where are you, Hi, Botanist. Okay. The first one is a tank debuff swap. It gives you 15% more physical strike damage, so it's something for the tanks to deal with. Recursive strikes on Deadman, taunt now, so Tali taunts, and now the boss is on him. Now, the first ability, and this ability happens throughout the entire encounter, is called Solar Collapse. It will target a random player. It could be a tank, a healer, not sure if it's a tank, but melee, healer, or ranged DPS. And what's going to spawn multiple yellow circles or balls and bring them closer and closer and closer. Your job is to dodge them. If you're good at dodging balls on Chromatic Anomaly, this will be pretty easy as well. As you can see them. That's where they spawn, and they get closer and closer and closer to their intended target. Well, if you know they target ranged, healers, or melee, you know that you can dodge these really well, or you can bait them. So it gets closer and closer, and as it gets closer, it's obviously much more difficult to dodge, so it's a real pain in the ass if it is on melee. And I can't remember if it's ever targeted on melee here, or it might have been healers standing in melee, but yeah, anyway. So then you can see it get closer and closer until it's really hard to dodge, and then you basically die. It does something like 3 million damage, so it may not kill you, but if you get hit by 2, it's probably going to murder you. So don't get hit by it. There's recursive strikes. Now, Parasitic Fever. So right now, Indy on the raid frames has Parasitic Fever. Basically what it does is it roots you in place. Well, when you're rooted, you can't dodge mechanics. It sucks. It's a dot, it gets stronger, and you can't move. So what you have to do is, as a healer, dispel these people right away. It's Fetter, sorry, not Fever. So dispel them. It comes like once every 35 seconds. Dispel them. But when you dispel them, it spawns 2 flowers. Watch what happens. Where is it? Did they spell him? Somewhere out. You can't see it on the screen here. He's off to my left side, or to the left side where the fireballs are going right now. Basically, it spawns 2 flowers. Those flowers will fixate 2 random players. If they fixate and they hit you with a melee swing, they will infect you with the same debuff. And you have to dispel that person, which spawns 2 more flowers. So the goal is dispel somebody right away, stun lock, blow up those flowers, and if they're not targeted on you, blow them up. But if they are targeted on you, do not let them hit you, whatever it takes. One good thing is if 2 people will get targeted, if those 2 people are nearby, they will not run off into random directions. So you can't see it here. Hopefully we'll see it later on in the fight. And then the last ability is Controlled Chaos. You can see Controlled Chaos Dodge Attack. That's basically Manaroth's Felseeker. If you guys remember Manaroth, Felseeker, starts small, gets bigger, bigger, bigger. It does raid-wide damage, but if you're standing inside the purple circle, you will die. So you can see everybody running away from the purple circle. It's getting bigger. It's really hard to see. My hope, devs, if you're listening, Glyph and the rest of you guys, you've made it easier to see by making it darker or something like that. Because it is a bitch to see right now. There's Solar Collapse again. That's targeted on another ranged player, so they're trying to run away. And that's pretty much it for the first phase. You're dealing with Solar Collapse, you're dealing with the Parasites, which you're dispelling, killing ads, and Controlled Chaos. And tanks are dealing with their own recursive strikes. So, pretty simple first phase. But it gets... Yeah, they're going to be fun in LFR. We'll see what happens in LFR. So we'll see. Does Hand of Freedom get rid of the root? I would imagine it works in either two ways if you use Hand of Freedom. It'll either remove the root component so you can move, or it'll just dispel. Again, I wasn't on this one. I wasn't able to test it. Maybe all the paladins can check or can let us know. But it's either going to remove the root component or it's going to dispel, which is going to do the exact same thing anyway. The goal is to dispel it right away because you don't want to have somebody rooted who can no longer dodge the Fel Seeker, right? The Controlled Chaos or the Star Collapse or the later mechanics. So this is phase 1 in a nutshell. Recursive strikes, Parasitic Lasher. There you go. You can see them in the right side there. Those are Parasitic Lashers. So you can stun them, knock them back, whatever, but they will fixate people. So right now it's fixated on Galvin on the right side and Natoro. They can't let them get hit by him. And they die pretty quickly, so they're not, super, super, super deadly. But they're super annoying if you don't control them well. So again, controlled fight. There we go. This one's on melee. This sucks. This sucks a lot because you don't need to run out early, or else you'll get murdered if you're standing there. Everybody moved out? Perfect. Next Parasitic is on Natoro. Natoro's going to get dispelled. In a second there, we got dispelled. And now they need to... And then who's fixated? Carbona and Altaris. So you can see the lashes getting frozen, stunned, DPS, whatever you can. Now, at this point, he splits off into two. So High Botanist keeps his High Botanist abilities, and he turns into Solaris. So he has solar abilities. So High Botanist, he loses his Sun ability, which was the big Sun Sphere, but Solaris now gains it. So you're dealing with the same abilities in phase 1, so Parasitic Fetter. You're still dealing with the big Fel Seeker ability. And now you're dealing with phase 2, so you'll have a new ability. So still the Star Collapse as well, but Solaris is doing that, not High Botanist. And the new ability for this one, there's two. Number 1 is Flare, which is a tank ability. Don't stand near tanks. It's not a ton of damage either way. But Plasma Spheres. They are the big component to phase 2. You can see them. They're the big gold balls. I know Blizzard loves balls. So they're these big balls that basically they do nothing. They don't attack, they do nothing. They take damage over time, and they kill themselves. The issue is, when they explode, and they explode on the raid, for 5 seconds they will give you a debuff, where you take 100% more damage. If all 3 Plasma Spheres explode at the same time, you wipe. So, the thing to do is kill one at a time. Blow up the first one. You can see the debuff ticking on the right side there. It's about to expire. Then you kill the second one. Plasma Sphere is low. And wait for the debuff to expire, and kill the third one, and control it. Where's the third sphere? There's the third sphere exploding now. So that way the raid does not wipe, and the damage is fairly staggered. And that's pretty much it for phase 2. I mean, it's pretty easy. He transitions pretty quickly. This is where the damage and you cleave classes will ramp up tremendously because now you're dealing with 2 bosses and now 3 bosses. So phase 2 really simple. Again, just those Plasma Spheres are the big one. Focus one down. So as DPS, if you're able to switch quickly, focus one down, let the debuff expire, kill the second one, let the third one do its own little thing. And then you'll transition to phase 3. So you're still dealing with Solarist, which does solar abilities. You're dealing with the with Arcanist, which is the new one, and Naturalist. So the Botanist and the Arcanist, they've split off. They do their own things now. The first new ability is you see these toxic spores, green spores. You guys remember doing Nax 25 or Nax 40 for you old school people? Little spores floating around. Can't be targeted. Well, I guess those were targetable, but they're just little spores floating around. These ones are green. They're completely avoidable. They just float around, doing their own little thing. Don't run into them. If you run into them, you take a 12-second dot. You run into too many of them, you'll die. What you could do is you could have like somebody, like a paladin, use their Crusader steed, run into a bunch of them, bubble them off, give your raid a little bit more room. There we go. Again, it's pretty straightforward here. So spores are the new ability. Grace of Nature is the other one. Grace of Nature is basically they're going to drop a healing circle under the bosses. Well, how do you not deal with the healing circle healing the bosses? Well, just drag the bosses out. Super easy. So in 30 seconds, hopefully he's still alive for to cast here. There's the Fel Seeker still. That all still happens. This the spheres should still be happening. Everything's still happening as before. Right? So this is where it gets really, really complicated. This is where you want to start heroing, blowing it up. There's the Plasma Sphere, so you're dealing with that. You're dealing with the Fel Seekers. You're dealing with the debuff that you have to dispel. You're dealing with the Yads that you have to kill. You're dealing with the spores that you have to dodge. And you're going to deal with Call of the Night here in a second. And Call of the Night is the Arcanist ability. And he targets random players. So you'll see, who's it on? He targeted Spooky, Psycho, and somebody else. And basically, you are doing raid-wide damage. If you are targeted by this thing, you are doing raid-wide damage, unless one of your friends comes over to you. So if one of your raiders, let's say I have it, and if one of my raiders comes over to me, then the raid does not take damage, only us two do. So you guys are now paired. You should always be moving together so the raid does not take that damage. But you two will. That's Call of the Night, essentially. Targets 2 or 3 players, depending on your raid size, and you don't want to blow up the entire raid. Stay nice and close together. And here comes Grace of Nature. Watch what happens. There, big green circle under the bosses. Just move the bosses out. And you can see when he starts casting it. So when the Naturalist, which is the one that casting it, is casting it, just start dragging the bosses out immediately, and eventually he'll just jump right over to you. But it is a pretty cool encounter. Again, lots of stuff to dodge. The mechanics get more and more complicated, but it's great because it introduces you to the mechanics slowly over time rather than like bum rushing you with 20 different mechanics. There, and they killed High Botanist. I believe this was on normal, I can't recall. Yeah, it might have been normal. Yeah, I mean, pretty good encounter, pretty fun, lots of things to manage. Again, it's going to require a lot of focus. This is one of those encounters, again, that's going to require lots of focus, lots of mechanics, and knowing how the mechanics interact with each other. Right, so you're prioritizing those dispels, you're focusing on adds before bosses, you're dodging stuff. Right, look how much they have to move. They're dealing with that. They're going to be dealing with the controlled chaos in 10 seconds, and they're dealing with spores still. Like, it's a lot of the abilities do overlap, but you want to minimize how much they do overlap by dealing with them very quickly. So, yeah, this one in Star Augur, well, Star Augur I think is a lot easier. The Naturalist, we'll see how guilds fare with this one too. So, one thing that Blizzard did really well in general, though, is the difficulty of the bosses scales really well from easiest, Scorpion the first boss, to Gul'dan the last boss. It scales extremely well, and then the end wing bosses are, really difficult as well. Yes, sometime it'll always be highlighted and YouTube, always. So for those of you who need to head out and go watch it afterwards. And always ask me questions. I'm always around. But yeah, that is, High Botanist in a nutshell. We have our own sort of strats here and diagrams and things like that. I'm more than happy to share them later on. But yeah, any questions about this one? Let me see here. No questions about High Botanist. We have 2 bosses to go then. We're making fantastic time. Amazing time. But yeah, High Botanist, pretty fun one. Complicated. We'll see. I think this one gives guilds some difficulty. Again, depends on your raid awareness of your players. Krosus will be super easy. Tichondrius will be really complicated. Star Augur pretty easy. And then Grand Magistrix will be complicated as well as we get to the next one. But I think she's a little bit less complicated than something like this or Tichondrius. I think Tichondrius will be the next Gorfiend for players. So you guys will get stuck on him. Any other questions? And yeah, if you guys ever have questions about whatever, I need a battle tag. I'm always happy to accept friend requests and answer questions or strat discussions or suggestions or ideas or share weak auras or share strats that we have in our spreadsheets from the guild to you guys. Okay, so those are the raid weak auras there. Again, you can hit the weak aura link there, pop them up. That was High Botanist. Fantastic. Let's pull up High Botanist, copy the import string. Import here. There we go. And again, these are, the boss's healing, explosions, the knights on you, you're fixated by the things, or you have the debuffs. So the weak auras are there. Thanks to Fibberlo. He's made them for us. Okay, no other questions about encounters? Okay, so we'll move on. Let's move on to Grand Magistrix Elisande, right? People call her Elisandre or something, apparently. Grand Magistrix is an interesting encounter. She's a bit of a pain in the ass. Let's, yeah, I remember this kill. This was a really sloppy kill by us. I think on normal or heroic, I can't remember. Let's pull it up here in a second. Alright. So Grand Magistrix Elisande. She's a fun boss. She is a boss where you're going to get very frustrated with your players, but expect that. She's the second last boss of the instance. She's the one where the whole Suramar storyline, and she's, you know, the bitch that's allowed all this stuff to happen. She's the mean one, basically. Right before Gul'dan, and we're finally, you know, seeing her die in this encounter. All right, so this encounter is, it's multi-phased. Again, the abilities get more complicated over time. Some abilities stay pretty consistent throughout the entire section as well. Where are you? Grand Magistrix. All right. So this one has lots of balls, lots of orbs, lots of elementals, more balls than Richard Simmons. Yeah, I'll go through the fight here as we go. So the first thing is the elementals. The elementals are probably the most important thing on this encounter because they make the fight easier or more difficult for you. There are two elementals that spawn. The first one, that one, is a recursive elemental. I mean, it's basically the slow elemental. It does not move. It casts. The cast is interruptible. So if you can interrupt it, great. And then there's the expedient. The expedient spawns somewhere nearby afterwards by the red beam. You can drag the expedient over. Expedient means fast. So you'll see how the orbs they interact with each other. Again, they do stagger the spawn rates, right? So recursive spawns first. You typically want to kill it first. If they spawn pretty much close to each other, you want to kill the expedient first because it gives you a massive buff. So here we're dragging it over, almost like a triangular position for the boss, because these orbs are going to spawn. So watch what happens in a second. So watch. So by going to the purple orb, I get a haste buff. Time flows 30% faster for me. I cast faster, I attack faster, I move faster if I have that buff. It's a buff on me for about 25 seconds, and then it expires, and then we'll get another one. So as a DPS, as a player in general, you want to try to keep this buff up as long as possible on you to do more damage, to do more healing, to make your life a lot easier. This big ring, the Arcanic Ring, comes from around the room and is targeted, you know, fairly centralized. When these rings go through you, they do damage. So you want to try to dodge these rings as well as you can. If the rings pass through the purple or blue orbs, they either go faster or slower, making it easier to dodge. You'll see what I mean. So here we have a singularity. I'll talk about that ability in a minute. See, look what happens. The three orbs, they go through the slow orb. They go through a lot more slowly, giving me a gap in order to run out. I bubbled that one, so not a big deal. Now, again, 4 people died right away, right? So it does a ton of damage. If you are going to get hit by an orb, and I mean, it's going to happen sometimes, try to get hit by only one. So, like, run through it rather than waiting for it to come to you, because one orb you can survive. 2 orbs will kill you. So these people that died, they got hit by 2 orbs. And now the other thing is these little singularities that spawn. They're the purple puddles. They target either ranged or healers. So you can control where they spawn. Where you want to place them is on the outside, because nobody should be out on the outside anyway, right? You're always on the inside of the room. So if you can, try to spawn them on the outside of the room, and they spawn these big puddles. The puddles, they're like Phase 2 Xavius puddles. You guys remember those, right? The little ads. When you kill the ads, they spawn a big puddle, you stand in it, take damage, and you soak it to get more corruption. Similar here, you take damage, they shrink. You can stand in there with a bubble or your divine protections or whatever to make the puddle smaller. So here we're going through phase 1. There's a puddle still on the ground. And see, we're telling everybody get it on the outside for little singularities. The timer was really, really off when we did this encounter a couple times. Yeah, here we have the arcane rings again. And see how easy it is to dodge? That is your goal. You want to hide behind the blue one, because it's slow, and that gives you enough of a gap. Here's the singularities. We're going to dodge the attack. So wherever people are standing, she'll throw little purple orbs. You can see them land, right? Wherever people are standing. At the same time, you're dealing with more of these ads. So right now, a recursive elemental spawned. Okay, so we get our haste buff. I'm standing right now on purpose in order to shrink this. I'm healing myself. And then you want to kill the elementals. So the difficulty in this fight is controlling the time at which the elementals die and getting the expedient buff. You want to keep it up as high as possible, kill it. There's the blue orb on the other side, so we want to bring them a little bit closer. So expedient's going to give you that haste buff, right? Now, if you run into the blue orb, you now get a slow buff. And you'll see me do that later on. It was a really like jackalope moment where I ran into the slow buff and slowed myself. I was a lot slower to move on your cooldowns. At 10%, you'll transition her, and basically you'll move into phase 2. Yeah, the bigger dome, the better. Well, yeah, bigger domes are better, right? Purple is where you want to be. Blue is where you not want to be. So here she goes into phase 2. She'll start again at 100% life, but she'll have more fun abilities, with a lot of the same ones repeating. Where's my notes? So, again, the goal is to have the elementals dead before the ring happens. If you don't have the elementals dead before the ring happens, then you're going to die. The other thing is, when the elementals are up, she's immune to damage, essentially. She has a big shield around her, she's shielded. Just kill elementals anyway, that's your priority. So there will be plenty of target switching for those of you wondering which spec to play. There's plenty of target switching on this boss. So here we go with the first ability. There is a recursive spawning, the blue one, and then expedient, going to spawn in a second. So we're blowing it up right away. And there's the shield that the recursive casts, right? She can't take any damage right now. You can interrupt the blast that he's doing right now, and then the expedient is going to get dropped over or brought over to us. And again, the recursive does not move. Do not stand near it. The next ability here is a big blast. She just blasts basically whoever she has targeted. Don't stand in that target. Again, this weak aura thing is gone, so you cannot use DBM arrows. All that stuff is gone now for raiding. Blizzard has disabled that. So there we kill the blue one, and then we're going to kill the expedient right now, get the purple buff. You see how close timing was? So we had a bunch of people dead, right? So the timing was pretty close there. At this point, we should have all gotten the haste buff and be hiding behind the blue one. So this is going to be really tough for people to dodge. A bunch of them are going to die. So I get behind it really quick, and then I try to just inch out. So again, a lot of people are dying because of the orbs. That is really the main mechanic of it, dodging those orbs. And again, you make the fight more difficult by spawning these little circles in the middle of the room where you're supposed to be standing. But yeah, so in previous iterations of this boss, the more people that stood in the dome, the smaller it got. So think of scenarios, the green patches on the ground. The more people that jump into it, the smaller it gets. The last couple PTR or beta versions, it did not shrink. So really, you could theoretically just stand in it the entire time with a buff. However, if you stand in it the entire time, you are going to spawn singularities on that spot. So here's the orbs. Sorry, the beams. And now the other thing in the second phase is more balls. So if you guys remember Korag and Highmaul, or Lei Shen, right? For those of you that like catching balls, same thing here. There are balls that are coming down from the sky. If they land on the ground, they do AoE damage. If they land on somebody, they only do damage with anybody that's nearby. Here, Rouleau actually died from the singularity. It did a raid-wide damage at that point too. I'm pretty sure, yeah. See how I run through it? If you're going to get hit by an orb, and I knew I was going to get hit, I popped a cooldown and I ran right through it. There's a recursive spawning. But yeah, like you'll have assigned people that have quick mobility to go soak various sections of the room and catch those balls. You'll be ball catchers. Again, same thing, singularities. Here come orbs again. You can sort of see them land. See it has a little swirl on the ground. Right next to me, right behind me. Then one of the Shadow Priests soaked it, so it does not do damage. But it will do damage to anybody nearby. Here again, hide behind the blue one, not behind purple. Purple one makes things go faster. So if you're hiding behind purple one, or the pink one rather, you'll get hit really quickly. And that's phase 2 in a nutshell. You're still dealing with the the Arcane Ring. You're dealing with the Elementals and the Singularities, as well as Beams and Ball Catching. Okay, we're going to get the buff here, and we're going to push her into Phase 3 shortly. I think a lot of people dead at this point, right? And this, again, I think this was normal, not heroic. If I look crazy, it is crazy, but we had a lot of people dead. Again, it's the second last encounter of the instance. It will be crazy. You know, many guilds should not be planning on clearing the entire thing in a week, on heroic especially. Alright, and this is now Phase 3. Phase 3, I think, is probably one of the easier phases. What do I have on my notes here? Yeah, so really, you're still dealing with elementals, recursive and expedient, right? Same thing as before. You're still going to deal with the rings. You are going to deal with Ablative Pulse. Now, Ablative Pulse is, okay, it's a tank thing, but it's interruptible. It's on the boss. Kill the recursive in order to break her shield so you can interrupt it. Right? You want to have that as a priority right now. You just got to blow it up. And then again, look how, I mean, we're so far behind with all the DPS dead that we're not able to kill those elementals in time. That's what's going to happen to wipes. It'll be a domino effect. Your DPS not able to kill it in time. Alright, we got the buff. And look, I'm slowed now. Well, I will be slowed as soon as I move. I don't know why I'm not casting anything at this point. But yeah, I'm slowed for 6-7 seconds. You'll see me running soon. And there is a big beam that comes from a certain section to a player. Again, interrupt it. Super easy. Berserk in 3 minutes. It was a really long encounter here. But again, go by a lot quicker when everybody's alive. You're dealing with orbs again, so hide behind blue to slow it. And sometimes, I mean, so that time 2 orbs got slowed, right? Depending on where these are placed, you might get 2 orbs slowed or 3 orbs slowed, but there will always be a gap or enough room for you to run out. If you have speed boosts, you know, this will be great to use your personal cooldowns, so you guys don't die to these orbs. And now we have 2 blue orbs up, which will make it easier, but the orbs do go away. See, this is where I ran through one. See how much slowly I run? Even with my speed boost. Again, you know, really bad mechanics there by Sparty. Again, right now they're tanking inside the pink. She does not gain the buff anymore. So there was one version where she actually got the buff, but thankfully that's gone. And again, you're killing expedients. Keep that speed buff up, dodge orbs, and you'll get it just fine. Right? Like it's very, if you break it down into its simplest things, don't get hit by orbs, keep speed buff up. Right? If you keep speed buff up, it'll be easier to dodge orbs, easier to kill the ads. And that's it. And then we eventually kill this boss. And look at all the singularities, right? Like, so we have less real estate to move now because we keep dropping all the crap in the middle of the room. If you use the outside of the room first, well, then you'll have the inside of the room clear. And if you use the inside of the room, you can dodge those orbs a lot easier. So, again, it's always that domino effect with this encounter specifically. Oops, I lost my dashboard. Okay, what questions do we have here? Any questions about Grand Magistrix Elisande? Besides the storyline stuff? Whatever, I mean, she can get a little more complicated. There's a lot of dodging with this one. I mean, your raiders have to be pretty aware with what's going on. But let me know if there's any questions. Yeah, get buffed, don't get balls to the face. Exactly. And you've got it down. Right? If you can simplify encounters like that, great. Again, this is the ball catching phase in Phase 2. This is only Phase 2. And that ball hit the entire raid, so it exploded there. Again, try to get hit by 1 orb. If you can, not by 2. Yeah, 1,000 on the meters too. What mechanics does she gain on Heroic and Mythic? So, one sec, somebody whisper me here. On Heroic, I'm trying to remember what changes between normal and Heroic. I can't recall. I think she gains that extra beam. Yeah, I can't recall what she gains on Heroic, but honestly, deal with it as if it was Heroic, right? All those abilities. You're still dealing with the rings, expedients, recursives, the spanning singularity, that's the things on the ground, right? Ablation is the tank debuff, not a big deal. The beams are the Phase 2 beams that are shooting out from her onto different players, so don't get hit. The orbs are what you're catching, right? This is the catching orb, tank explosion, and Phase 3 again. I mean, that's really it. On Mythic, I mean, even more fun stuff with vulnerability, and it'll be a lot more coordination. So, yeah, I can't remember. You might be bouncing balls. I can't remember doing it on Mythic. Anyway, any other questions about Grand Magistrix? Yeah, they might just bounce back up and down. So you have to keep catching balls throughout the entire encounter while you're dealing with her other abilities, which is not fun at all. Otherwise, if there's no questions, we'll move on to Gul'dan. And with Gul'dan, there's no questions. Gul'dan, we only got 2 phases in, and I mean it's pretty consistent 2 phases. It's a pretty fun encounter, but we did not get through to phase 3, right? We tested, I think, phase 2 on heroic. I'm pretty sure. Right, phase 1 is super simple. Phase 2 is pretty standard, and phase 3 we did not really touch on. So I want to go through the first 2 phases of that encounter. Then you have a dot that could be slowed down with a time bubble so it didn't kill you. Didn't they have a dot that could be slowed down with time bubbles? I don't think so. Yeah, I don't recall that one. Yeah, I've not seen any cinematics. So one thing I don't spoil myself with, and is I never watch cinematics. I never ever watch them at MMO on WoW or whatever, because I don't want to spoil them for myself. I want to earn them and kill them for the first time and see what happens and all the voices. And so I don't know what's going to happen in the storyline. Don't spoil it for me. So when I kill Gul'dan for the first time, I will experience it with you guys as well, which will be pretty cool. But okay, let's move on to Gul'dan, both normal and heroic. All right, Gul'dan. Gul'dan's a PC killer? Well, we shall see. Alright, Gul'dan, last one. And again, for those of you that are not here, this will all be on Twitch VODs. I might ask Midges to separate it between different bosses, or do like 10 bosses of it or something, or on YouTube. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, so Gul'dan is a 3-phase encounter. This is finally the culmination of dealing with the crap of WoD, and finally killing him here because he was a little jerk that ran away early on. So, Gul'dan is a fun encounter. First phase is fairly simple. First phase, you're not DPSing him, you're killing ads. Think of the first phase as Manaroth, phase 1. You're dealing with the 3 guys around, the Doom Guards, the Imps, the Infernals, very similar to that. So you're going to start with the first phase. So the first thing that happens is Liquid Hellfire. Liquid Hellfire targets places on the ground. You see the green circle there. And the closer you are to the green fire, the more damage you take. So don't stand near it. The second thing that's going to happen is Hand of Gul'dan. Big purple swirl. Don't stand in these things. It's going to summon a big Doom Guard. There's a Doom Guard. Or Fel Lord, whatever. Fel Lord Zakun basically there for you. What does he do? He spawns fissures on heroic, not on normal. And he has a big tank damage. That's it. The other ability in phase 1 is Gul'dan will do his big, Kamehameha beam here on random players. It'll be a ranged or healer. That's really important. Do not stand with the melee if you are a ranged or healer. That is the biggest thing you can get out of phase 1. If you are a ranged or healer, do not stand near melee. Because if all the melee are clumped together and you're that guy that's standing over here, he will target you with this beam and kill your entire raid. Do not stand there. So, you want to stagger around the room so you minimize some people who are going to get hit by it. That's essentially phase 1. Now, one really cool thing about this encounter is everybody gets an extra action button. Right? You see mine in the middle of my screen right there. Tanks get one where they absorb damage for 6 seconds. They're basically immune. The healers get one where they put a big dome around them. They channel this big dome, and anybody within that dome gets protected from fire damage, and it gets fire damage absorbed. And the DPS, this is really cool, DPS get a really cool ability that gives them more haste, movement, all that stuff, fun damage. What did I write here? One sec. What is it exactly? Where are you? This one, time dilation. Increasing casting, movement, and attack speed by 30%, as well as increasing cooldowns by 30% and periodic effects by 30%. So this is an activated ability that you use like on burst. Right? It's your own personal heroism, essentially. Except, and this is what raid leaders are going to love, whenever you get hit by fire, you'll lose that ability. So don't get hit by fire. Right? This is also important, so you don't get beamed and lose that buff. So you have to use it at important times. There's the Green Hellfire ability while we're dealing with the Doom Guard. There's Doom Guard. I think that's Genie getting spiked there. Genie, if you're listening, that's you with your spike up your bum. And that's it, right? He's taking massive damage right now through that Fellfire, getting beamed. In addition, one thing that's going to happen is, so there's more ads that spawn. Right now we have the Fel Lord guy up. Then we have an Inquisitor spawn. The Inquisitor is the biggest bitch of this first phase. He is a giant pain in the ass. He has 3 main abilities. The first one is this Drain. With this Drain, it has to be dispelled as quickly as possible. Like, you need to have trigger fingers on dispels because it does damage. And for every tick of damage that it does, it also heals the Inquisitor. The other thing the Inquisitor does, I mean, he's pretty stationary. He doesn't move. So he's right there. If you guys remember the Inquisitors in Archway, remember how the little beams of eyes they spawn? Exact same thing here. Right? So they're a huge pain in the ass. They spawn near players. Right? There's one under the Inquisitor right now. So if you are all collapsed on one side, you will spawn them on one side of the room, which is very important. Do not be staggered across the entire room. Right? Like, you're going to want to use one half section of the room to spawn eyes there. Because the more eyes you have, again, these beams will rotate, and they will kill your melee. Because Inquisitor doesn't move. So look at that beam, slowly moving. Hey, look, more eyes. More eyes. He just keeps casting this gaze. And this, just imagine how many... There. And see, that was bad. So the melee got hit by a beam, and there's gazes, and now there's pillars coming up from the ground. So not a fun time for melee. Unfortunately, I think we had 3 range DPS on this encounter. I mean, melee DPS are fine, but it was a really bad balance for us. So the Inquisitor didn't die as quickly. It was a giant pain in the ass. And this shit stays in Phase 2. So yeah, this is Phase 1, but all these beams are staying in Phase 2. In addition, you are dealing with the Jailer. And what does the Jailer do? Well, he spawns big green shit, so there's the big AoE, but he also throws down a cage. And if he throws down this cage near you, you get pulled toward it, you take more damage, and guess what? If there's beams near you, you get pulled through those beams. So it's a huge, huge pain in the ass. Look at me standing in melee now. Luckily, I didn't get targeted. So you want to burn these down as quickly as possible. This is where you can use your extra action buttons, right? Either the dome for the healers, or as a DPS, use your buff, right? 30% more haste. You can also hero in this phase as well if it's giving you a ton of issues, but it is partly a gear check too. I believe what they said in the feedback thread was the amount of eyes spawned was bugged, and would vary between 2 and 10. It was a pain in the ass, trust me. Like, it was like terrifying for a melee. So here's the cage. It's pulling you towards, similar to the vault. The vault boss. There's green fire. Don't stand in it, otherwise you'll die. More green fire. Don't stand in it. There's another cage nearby, and basically that's the entire phase. You're dealing with a Fel Lord who spawns pillars and does a big tank slam. The Inquisitor, who's a pain in the ass, who's blinking around. He doesn't move, but he blinks. He does a debuff, and then he does the eyes, and then this Jailer, which does green shit on the ground and the big cage. Now, this is Phase 2 of Gul'dan, so now you actually get to fight Gul'dan, finally. He has a couple, I don't know, pretty decent abilities. The first one being, he has eyes that spawn. You'll see what I mean here in a second. Yeah, so you can start DPSing him right away. He knocks you back. We use different markers, and you'll see why. So we had a bit of a triangle formation with this. Tally picks him up. Alright, so the first ability that happens is these Eyes of Gul'dan. Now, these Eyes of Gul'dan, they do damage and stuff, but they also replicate. If you don't kill them in time, they're going to spawn more and more and more of these, and they're exponential. So you can see them casting duplicate here. But to duplicate, that one duplicated, but we killed them. So you want to AoE the crap out of them. So AoE classes, great. Next thing that happens is Bonds of Fel. Bonds of Fel, think of this as Archimonde. You guys remember Archimonde and the Chains ability? So the Chains ability, you know, when you ran away, it exploded, right? Either on the raid, or it killed everybody near you on Mythic. This is very similar. It has about an 8-yard chain. Once your chain breaks, you do 10 million damage to everybody near you. So what we did is we had 2 points. We had the tank spot, which is where Tali is right now. We had the marker here, where we start on for bonds, so they're all very similar. Then everybody shifts over to blue. So we're all going to soak that damage together. But because of the healer buff, we're able to take less damage. So right over here, there's the healer buff, and we exploded on each other, right? So nobody died. And then at the same time, you're still dealing with the big Green Hellfire. So you might want to stagger your healing buffs that way. We should have used our third one there. So there's Hand of Gul'dan. Guess what? Doom Guards, or Dreadlords, Jaina's friend, brother, sister, are here. And they're doing the same kind of thing. Carrion Plague, which is interruptible. And you're dealing with all those other abilities. So the Eye of Gul'dan will be next. Again, these Dreadlords are a priority. Again, lots of cleavage, right? Less single target, lots of cleaving on these things. And then you're going to have Eyes of Gul'dan soon. This is where we start getting overrun by Eyes of Gul'dan. Yeah, and this is really tough because the abilities do overlap, right? Eyes of Gul'dan plus the bonds, which means, well, we got to kill these eyes first. Like, they're the priority first, because if you don't control them, they're just going to keep replicating and you're screwed. The bonds happen at the same time as well. So with the bonds, the longer they're on you, the more damage you take. So you might want to hold off on breaking the bonds until you deal with the eyes. And then, obviously, we're going to run off to the side here and break the bonds, and this is where we start wiping. So this is roughly about as far as we got into the encounter, but he has 1.4 gigawatts of HP. That was the encounter in a nutshell. I mean, for phases 1 and phase 2. Should be pretty fun on normal and heroic, right? But yeah, lots of fun with this boss. I don't know, it seems pretty cool. Simplified for phase 1 and phase 2. I'm excited for Mythic and the last phases. I didn't get to see them, but I'm sure there'll be more guides and videos out there at some point. So let me know. Let me know if you have any questions about Gul'dan specifically, strats, things like that. Again, it's all normal and heroic. Again, most of this, right? Rating comes down to two things: stand in the right spot, kill the ads. If you do those things right, bosses are easy. Right? Every single one of these bosses. From Skorpyron, stand in the right spot, don't get hit by the blast, right? Don't get shockwave, don't get knocked back, and kill the ads. You do those two things, boss dies. Right? Okay, well, what about other bosses? Krosus. Okay, you have ads spawn, little burning embers, kill them, stand in the right spot, you win. That's it. That's as simple as you simplify them. Yeah, there'll be lots of cleaving in, lots of cleaving. Lots and lots of cleavage in the Nighthold, for sure. Yeah, I've gone through all the bosses. Gul'dan is the last one now. It'll all be highlighted, and, the weak are all there as well. What do you use your withered troops on? Whatever the hell you want, I don't know. And again, the weak are all there, so we'll put up our weak auras. Again, Gul'dan. Here are my Gul'dan weak auras, copy import string, and we are good to go for Gul'dan. Lots of fun abilities. So Fibrilow's already made these for the later phases as well. It gets quite complicated later on. I don't really want to get into it too much, but the mechanics in phase 3 are a ton. Well of Souls, it's going to be a bitch. I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. Empowered Eyes of Gul'dan, duplicating even more. They do lots of fire damage. They explode. It'll be a nightmare for you guys. Okay, any other questions? It's on Dot. It's called Primitive Torment. There's also another ability that's used to make people explode on the rate after 30 seconds. Yeah, so the Dot didn't happen on that difficulty because I think it was normal that was being shown. But yeah, Primitive Torment. Where are you? Sorry, heroic. Yeah, Mark Silver play with. Yeah, they'll inflict arcane energy. Just a debuff, right? Every time it gets on you, more and more damage. But yeah, for the most part, it was just beams and beams and beams. Now, Primitive Torment, when we looked through the video, and I went through it just to look for that debuff specifically, the timers were either off, or it just showed off as the beam buff. That was it. Yeah, both in phase 3. Yeah. There's another ability that makes people explode on raid after 30 seconds. Yeah, this one, the Conflexive Burst, this one did not show up. Guessing it was... Yeah, I mean, it didn't show up for us at all. It is a deadly one. Again, I don't know why it didn't show up. Are weak auras for healers? No, they're for everybody. No, those weak auras are for everybody. So if you're a tank, you'll have tank weak auras for you in that package. If you're a healer, you'll have healer weak auras. If you're a DPS weak auras, or weak auras that are relevant to you. So if I'm a healer, I'm not going to see the tank debuff show up for me. So yeah, feel free to use them, share them, bookmark them. They will be updated periodically by Below, one of our mods here and one of our old members. He now raids on the EU, but he's a good guy that's made all these weekors for you guys. Oops, let's close this down. Yeah, again, all the weekors are ready. Some are mythic ready, heroic ready, very limited testing. Yeah, and eventually, you know, they'll all be updated and tested even more. So, Twitter, whatever, donate, totally worth it. Legion Dungeons, legacy stuff, whatever you want to do here. Yeah, right there. What's the minimum level? So I can deal with everybody's questions. So non-fight related questions, as my voice is dead. Are we on time? 3 hours, that's it? Well then, I'm impressed. I did all of that in 3 hours. I must have done them more extensively last time. That's pretty good. Okay, so